Chapter 23:11. Humph, my luck is indeed not bad. But this is also because the heavens are protecting my sword region. That Tao sect cultivator's luck has come to an end. Let them know who the true king of the Dawn Rain continent is. Zhong Haoshuan nodded coldly. Mu Ting of the Lunar Sword sect greets my fellow swordsman. A female swordsman dressed similarly to LV Ruochang stepped forward and bowed. However, this female swordsman's face was as beautiful as a flower, and she smiled wholeheartedly. The sword spirit that my lunar sword sect was looking for has been obtained. It is currently being nurtured in my lunar sword valley's sword pool. If the illusory sword formation needs to be used, I can retrieve it at any time. The following two people, Tian Simu of the Flaming Bamboo Sword Sect and Ruo Ling of the Failing Sword Manor, both spoke about the results of their sections. The sword spirit and other items that they needed were all prepared. As long as LV Ruochang gave the order, the illusory sword great battle could begin. Good. Seeing that the swordsmen had completed their tasks extremely well, LV Ruochang smiled and said, "Thank you for your assistance, fellow swordsmen. I am extremely grateful. Back then, when you recommended me to take charge of the illusory sword formation, I was very nervous. With all of you sword friends working tirelessly, this sword finally has some confidence in my heart." LV Jianyu. The weapon cultivator, Fan Ming Yuan, frowned slightly and said, "I know about this illusory sword formation. I have used it before. Just by relying on it, this formation can kill Dao sect cultivators in the middle stage of the Golden Core stage, but it will be troublesome to deal with those in the late stage of the Golden Core stage. Moreover, with so many foundation establishment and chi refinement cultivators, the illusory sword formation might not be able to withstand it, right?" Senior Fan is right. LV Ruochang said respectfully. However, the last time this formation was set up was 3,000 years ago. Back then, countless Dao sect cultivators were killed, and the Golden Core cultivators were also frightened. If not for the 3 late-stage Golden Core cultivators who suddenly became nascent souls, I am afraid that we would have achieved even more glorious results. Yes, since you know, could it be that your illusory sword formation is even more powerful than the previous one? Of course. Lu Ruochang nodded his head confidently. This time, I have set up the illusory sword formation in the sword tomb. Firstly, I can make use of the sword intent of the remnant sword in the sword tomb to increase the lethality of the illusory sword formation. Secondly, I can make use of the metal chi in the sword tomb to suppress the spiritual chi between the Dao sect cultivators and the heaven and earth, preventing any more Golden Core cultivators from conceiving. In this way, not only can we kill cultivators in a large area, we can even kill late Golden Core stage cultivators. Yes, what LV Jianyu said makes sense. Weapon cultivator Fan Ming Yuan nodded slightly. There are very few cultivators with a metal attribute constitution in the 3 cultivation kingdoms. Furthermore, it's unlikely that they'll be able to use the metal chi within the sword tomb. Furthermore, the sword catacomb is the most eye-catching place for sword cultivators and the Dao sect. You set up the illusory sword array there to lure them into the trap. They will definitely be surprised. Hehe, isn't this what the Dao sect meant by catching the enemy off guard? A swordsman laughed. I still have some misgivings. Weapon cultivator Fan Ming Yuan was still worried. There are a lot of foundation establishment disciples in the Dao sect. Our illusory sword array doesn't have a sword cultivator to support it. I'm afraid, Senior Fan. LV Ruochang was not angry at Fan Ming Yuan's insistence on getting to the bottom of the matter. Instead, he was very willing for him to ask. LV Ruochang replied with a smile, "This is one of the things that I want to tell you." As he spoke, LV Ruochang looked at the green-robed swordsman and said with a smile, "Ling Yunwu from the Lingfeng sword sect, have you received what I gave you? Have you found the spirit-swallowing bugs?" Spirit-swallowing bugs? Hearing this, all the sword cultivators were stunned and looked at each other. Fan Mingyuan asked curiously, LV are you talking about the spirit-swallowing bugs? Yes. LV Ruochang looked away from Ling Yunwu and replied with a smile, I found some records about the spirit-swallowing bugs in the ancient books of the Black Phoenix Sword sect. 100 years ago, when I was traveling in the Meng Mountains, I happened to get the black silk wood. Therefore, I gave it to Ling Jianyu and asked him to find the spirit-swallowing bugs. After all, the spirit-swallowing bugs are near the Chestnut Valley, which is the closest to the Lingfeng Sword sect. Well, I kind of understand now. Fan Mingyuan nodded slightly. LV Jianyu planned to use the spirit-swallowing bugs to devour the Qi refining and foundation establishment cultivators, and then use the illusory sword array to deal with the rest of the cultivators. Exactly. Lu Ruochang's tone was slightly arrogant as he said, this worm is the head of all spiritual worms in the world. It loves to devour spiritual energy, Dharma artifacts and Dharma treasures refined by Taoist cultivators, as well as their vital essence. It is very suitable to kill cultivators. I set a part of the illusory sword array especially for the spirit-swallowing bugs. Let's call it the spirit-swallowing array for now. As long as foundation building stage and Qi refining stage disciples enter this formation, they will certainly be killed by the spirit-swallowing bugs. Well, good. The few weapon cultivators beside Fan Mingyuan also nodded slightly. However, the few beast cultivators beside them had unsightly expressions on their faces. Ling Jianyu, have you found the spirit-swallowing bugs? Fan Mingyuan looked at Ling Yunwu again. Why don't you say anything? Do you want to give me a surprise? LV Ruochang smiled again, which was rare. After all, the spirit-swallowing bugs was her trick, and she had already given the windy silk wood to the Lingfeng sword sect, which was the safest step in the illusory sword array. She didn't think there would be any mistakes. Well. Ling Yunwu, who was in cyan clothes, was a little embarrassed. He mumbled and hesitated. Thump. LV Ruochang felt something was wrong and said coldly, LV Jianyu, what do you mean? I gave you the windy silk wood and the sword pouch. Don't tell me you didn't see them. Of course not. Ling Yunwu smiled apologetically, I've already got the windy silk wood and the sword pouch, and I've been to Chestnut Valley many times. According to LV Jianyu's records, I finally found some clues. Although I can't be completely sure, but, in that case, why don't you tell me directly? LV Ruochang was relieved. It's just that, when I was on my way here, I received a flying sword message from the sword sect. Ling Yunwu gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, more than 30 bright sword third-grade disciples I sent to find the spirit-swallowing bugs, were all killed. More than 30 bright sword third-grade disciples. All killed? LV Ruochang was also surprised, the Taoism sect actually attacked Chestnut Valley? Was there a gold core cultivator? Well. Ling Yunwu said awkwardly, the Taoism sect cultivators haven't attacked Chestnut Valley yet. These disciples were killed near White Jade Mountain. Didn't your disciples go to Chestnut Valley to find the spirit-swallowing bugs? Why did they go to White Jade Mountain? LV Ruochang sneered, Ling Jianyu, don't tell me, you gave the sword pouch and the black silk wood to your disciples. That's right. That's right. Ling Yunwu's expression was uncertain. LV Ruochang's expression changed greatly. He stared at Ling Yunwu for a long time and sneered, Ling Jianyu, you're really at ease. That's the black silk wood, one of the few spiritual woods that can be used to find the spirit-swallowing bugs. You actually let your disciples, who are only at the bright sword realm, be in charge of it. And that sword pouch, although it's empty, it's still a treasure. You don't have to worry about letting people hold it. Do you really think that the things of my Black Phoenix sword sect are not things? Alas, no matter what LV Jianyu says, I can't refute it. Ling Yunwu smiled bitterly, I already had a plan last time. I was going to go there personally, but with LV Jianyu's spiritual sword summoning me, I dare not come. Moreover, I was afraid of delaying LV Genio's important matter, so I sent my capable disciples. I wanted to give you all a surprise during this period. But who knew? But who knew that your proud disciples actually ran to the White Jade Mountain and were killed by the practitioners of the Gold Core realm? LV Ruochang seemed to be ruthless and said coldly, I've already explained the matter of the spirit-swallowing bugs clearly. The spirit-swallowing bugs are the most important part of the illusory sword formation. If your Lingfeng sword sect delays this matter, you'll have to bear the consequences. Yes. What else could Ling Yunwu say? He cupped his hands and said, I feel guilty. When this matter is over, I'll immediately go to the White Jade Mountain and find the black silk wood and the sword pouch to atone for my mistakes. Atone for your mistakes? What kind of achievements do you have? LV Ruochang sneered, who knows which Gold Core realm practitioner killed the 30 swordsmen? Where are you going to find him? LV Jianyu. A beast practitioner who had been silent for a long time whispered, you don't only need the black silk wood to find the spirit-swallowing bugs, right? There are a few other kinds. And if we know the approximate location of the spirit-swallowing bugs, our Quilted Mountain sect has a secret technique that can help us find them. LV Ruochang looked up at the beast practitioner who was as short as a baby and sighed, where are we going to find the other kinds of spiritual objects? Besides, I know that the Quilted Mountain sect and the 7 spiritual mountains have this secret technique, but I'm sure Senior Green Peak knows the consequences of the secret technique better than I do, right? Alas, what's the point of talking about the consequences at this point? Green Peak said bitterly, we beast practitioners have always been regarded as abnormal by the Taoist sect. We're indebted to the sword practitioners for protecting us. Now, as long as we can use our beast practitioners, we'll do it even if we have to sacrifice our lives. Okay. LV Ruochang nodded and didn't comment. Let's wait for my news. Ling Yunwu felt very guilty and smiled apologetically, if news of my death comes, Senior Green Peak will make the decision. What are you talking about? Fan Mingyuan scolded, although we don't cultivate Taoist techniques and don't understand karma, we're still cultivators in the world. You can't speak nonsense. Yes, I understand. Ling Yunwu hurriedly bowed. Humph, LV Ruochang glanced at Ling Yunwu coldly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a bird's cry. It was like a mournful wail that soared into the sky. It pierced everyone's ears and immediately disrupted the tranquility of the valley. Even the quiet sound of the lake had layers of ripples. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Chidian. Com. Chapter 23:12. Who is it? The swordsmen were shocked and turned to look. A yellow light flashed, and from the light, a giant rock that was hundreds of feet in size rushed into the valley, closely rubbing against the cracks in the valley. Once the giant rock entered the valley, it immediately spread its wings. Its huge wings flapped, and the wind howled, casting its shadow on Lake Chui. The giant rock did not stop. Instead, it circled above Lake Chui, and its sharp eyes swept past the swordsmen. The swordsmen, weapon cultivators, and beast cultivators felt a chill in their hearts. Then, their faces became respectful again, and they bowed in unison. After the giant rock circled around Lake Chui, it proudly landed on the stone wall and retracted its wings. At this moment, 2 distinct figures, one tall and one short, were revealed on the giant rock's back. The most conspicuous one was naturally the tall one. This person was 3 feet tall, had thick arms, and a muscular body. On his head, which was much larger than a dipper, was a big red nose. It was very eye-catching. Looking at the short figure, he was shorter than an ordinary person by more than half, and only reached the giant's knees. There was nothing special about this dwarf, but there was always a cunning look in his 2 small eyes from time to time. Pung! The giant landed on a protrusion on the stone wall, and the stone wall shook slightly. Greetings, Senior Qi. The swordsmen bowed in unison. The giant rock was Chi Peng, the valley master of the Osprey Valley in the Han country. He was a beast cultivator whose cultivation was comparable to a sword transformation realm cultivator. Wait for me. Chi Peng withdrew his figure and reverted to a middle-aged man covered in yellow light. He raised his hand and gestured. Yes. The swordsman stood up. How did the discussion go? Chi Peng asked. We respected what you said and only delayed the Path Sect's cultivators near Sky Patrol City. Moreover, we are setting up a large formation in the Sword Tomb, and we are preparing to give the Path Sect a head-on blow. Lu Ruochang replied respectfully. Just as he was about to introduce his plan, Chi Peng waved his hand and said, This is something that you should worry about. Don't tell this old man. It's not my turn to step up yet. Yes, I understand. This is a chance for us to train. LV Ruochang didn't dare to say much and replied respectfully. Yes, this old man is here to bring you some news. Chi Peng raised his hand and said, This is the chief of the mountain crossing giant tribe, Lian Xiaoqiao. This is the chief of the Cloud Cave Dwarf tribe, Gao Dezhuang. I believe all of you sword friends know that the giant tribe and the dwarf tribe are also participating in this war under the persuasion of the sword cultivator elders. Everyone hasn't seen the two tribe leaders yet, right? Although the giant had given him an extremely Xiao name, and the dwarf had given him an extremely Da name, none of the swordsmen dared to laugh. Their faces were all unusually respectful. When he heard Chi Peng's introduction, he bowed again and said, Greetings, Patriarch Lian and Patriarch Gao. Yes, get up, get up. Gao Dezhuang was very happy and waved his hand to signal everyone to get up. Even Xiaoqiao didn't say anything. It's great news that the giants and dwarves are joining the war. Chi Peng said again, however, this old man has even better news to share with all of you. This old man has joined forces with the elders of a few weapon cultivators and beast cultivators to head to Alchemy Valley. I have already convinced the two hidden experts in the valley. As long as the two elders appear, the nascent soul cultivators of the Taoist sect will definitely not be their opponents. Moreover, what's even better is that it will definitely not cross the bottom line of the Taoist sect's spirit-severing stage-old monster. When the swordsmen heard this, they all had strange expressions on their faces. Indeed, they didn't even know where the Alchemy Valley was in the Huan country, let alone the hidden experts. Senior Qi, what you said, is... Fan Ming Yuan seemed to have thought of something and stuttered. Yes, it's that old man. Chi Peng nodded. Moreover, there's another old man, who I'm afraid you don't even know. He seems to be even more powerful than the old man you mentioned. This matter is not set in stone yet, so don't think too much. We definitely can't ask them to take action now. In the end, we just need them to appear and control the situation. Yes, this junior understands. Fan Ming Yuan hurriedly bowed and replied. This old man was just in a moment of happiness. This old man is here today to bring you some news. Chi Peng laughed again. Clan leader Gao's people are the best at the earth amplification technique, which is even more powerful than the Taoist sect's 5 elements escape technique. The dwarf clan's people found many Taoist sect cultivators moving in the east of the Sword Realm. Moreover, they seem to be moving to a few fixed places. Hence, clan leader Gao told this old man about this matter. This old man was with clan leader Lian. When I thought of you all here, I came to inform you. Yes, thank you for your message, Senior Qi. LV Ruochang bowed and thanked him. This is also a topic that we are discussing here. This is a task that my master and I have assigned to us. Oh. I see. Chi Peng smiled and nodded. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Alright, you all can discuss the arrangements. This old man won't interfere anymore. After he finished speaking, Chi Peng's body glowed with a strange brilliance. It looked faint, but it covered his entire body. When the brilliance disappeared, the giant rock appeared on the stone wall again. With a long cry, the giant rock bent its neck toward the sky. Its cry shook the sky. Then, it flapped its wings and slowly flew up. Gao Dezhuang and Lien Xiaochao hurriedly jumped up and landed on the giant rock's back. Lien Xiaocao's body was so big that even the stone wall shook. However, when she landed on the giant rock's back, the giant rock didn't even sway. This junior respectfully sends Senior Qi off. LV Ruochang and the others bowed respectfully and watched as the giant rock spread its wings and flew through the gap in the valley sealed by the hurricane. When the giant rock's figure disappeared into the gap, LV Ruochang and the others straightened up. Their eyes were still filled with respect. Senior Qi is indeed a godly person. Fan Kuiyuan sighed with emotion. Not only did he find the giant clan, but he also found the mysterious dwarf clan. The most incredible thing is that person, he actually knew where to go. He invited him out. Who is that person? Who is that person? LV Ruochang couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Senior Qi has given the order. This old man doesn't dare to speak carelessly. Fan Kuiyuan said with a smile. Besides, this old man doesn't know who the other person is. Forget it. LV Ruochang said with a smile. What will come will come. We just have to do our own thing. That's right. Fan Kuiyuan nodded. Then, he asked curiously, Senior Qi's news is very important. I'm afraid it's a new plan of the Taoist sect. Why did LV Jianyu say that you already have a plan? Chapter 23:13. Senior Fan, why do you think the people of Sword Realm are attacking the three countries? LV Ruochang asked with a smile. Are you trying to test this old man? Fan Mingyuan laughed. No, I'm just asking casually. LV Ruochang shook his head slightly. Fan Mingyuan smiled and said, if it was the previous battles, I might have thought that it was because of the conflict between Sword Realm and the three countries, so we had to fight to determine the outcome. However, this old man knows that the reason for today's battle is because of the two girls from the Xianjian sect and the two illusory swordsmen that they lost. However, the truth is that due to the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, spiritual stones, spiritual herbs and other items have decreased. Our sword domain is too narrow and cannot compare to the three countries of the Tao sect. Therefore, we have to snatch their spiritual herbs and spiritual stones. That's right, Senior Fan is right. LV Ruochang nodded and said, this is also what the elders told us at the beginning of the battle. Although the Tao sect's array is not as powerful as the sword array of our sword domain, in terms of concealment and defense, it is stronger than the sword array. At the border of our sword domain, Shi country, and Meng country, there are more than 10 spirit stone veins. However, because of the protection of the Tao sect's formation, it is not easy to find them. In the previous battles, we spent some effort on them, but the results were minimal. Moreover, Sword Realm did not lack spirit stones at that time, so who would care about them? However, it's different now. Sword Realm spirit stones are about to dry up. The spirit stone veins at the border of Sword Realm have become our savior. Oh. The purpose of this battle is to steal these spirit stone veins? Fan Mingyuan suddenly realized. The attacks and killings are all just a pretense. If Senior Fan understands it this way, then it's possible. LV Ruochang and Fan Mingyuan's conversation spread throughout Lake Chui, so all the swordsmen could hear it clearly. Many people had the same look of realization as Fan Mingyuan at this moment. What about the illusory sword formation of the sword catacomb? Fan Kuiyuan asked curiously. This has nothing to do with snatching the spirit stone mine, right? He. Not only can we kill off cultivators, we can also snatch the spirit stone mine. Isn't that killing two birds with one stone? Lu Ruochang said with a chuckle. Fine. These things are too complicated. I really can't understand them. Whatever LV Jianyu says, I'll do it. Fan Mingyuan turned to look at the swordsman and smiled bitterly. The other swordsmen are probably the same as me. Perhaps this is the reason why the teachers didn't make it clear. I didn't mean to keep it a secret. LV Ruochang shook his head. This matter is very important. The fewer people who know about it, the better. Yes, I know. Fan Mingyuan waved his hand. Elder Qi, are you saying that the Dao sect's cultivators are sending disciples to protect the spirit stone mine? Exactly. Lu Ruochang nodded. The cultivators of the sword domain have been pressuring the Dao sect cultivators. They have clearly sensed danger. The spirit stone mine is even more important to them, so they have to increase their vigilance. However, they don't know that the sword domain's goal is the spirit stone mine. They want to send reinforcements, but they are afraid that we know the location of the spirit stone mine. They don't want to attract our attention, so they are fearless and mysterious. To put it bluntly, they are not even worth a single spirit stone. How should we deal with them? I will listen to LV Jianyu's orders. I dare not. I have already asked the swordsmen of the Quilted Mountain sect and the Wild Beast Mountain Manor to help keep an eye on the cultivators' movements. Now that I have the help of the dwarf clan, I am even more confident. LV Ruochang said with great confidence. Following her explanation, various orders were issued as they discussed. The swordsmen of the various sects nodded solemnly and accepted the orders. This discussion lasted for several days. After all the details were discussed, the swordsmen who received the mission did not waste a single word. They flew out of the gap on their swords, leaving behind Ling Yunwu of the High Wind Sword sect. Ling Jianyu, it's not that I want to blame you. LV Ruochang knew what Ling Yunwu meant, but her tone was still indifferent. In addition to the previous arrangements, the High Wind Sword sect has to complete and cooperate with the actions of the other sections. You still have to find the black silk wood. After all, if you can save the life of a beast cultivator, you should do it. Yes, I understand. Ling Yunwu nodded. This matter originated from me. Even if I have to pay with my life, I will find the black silk wood and the sword pouch. I will not implicate the sword friends of the beast cultivators. Ling Jianyu, you don't have to do this. The cultivators who appeared in White Jade Mountain were at most middle-stage Gold Core realm. Maybe there were some late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. How can Ling Jianyu be afraid of them? Don't worry and go boldly. The cultivators who can hurt you are still in Sky Patrol City, outside the sword domain. Yes, I will leave. Once I find the spirit-swallowing bugs in Chestnut Valley, I will send a flying sword message to LV Jianyu. Ling Yunwu cupped his hands and bid farewell. Okay, I will listen to Ling Jianyu's good news. LV Ruochang nodded and watched Ling Yunwu fly away. She also jumped and turned into a sharp sword light, rushing out of the valley. Only the green lake behind her was left undisturbed. Besides, the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect and the Taiching sect were in the same place. Naturally, they could no longer use the drifting cloud flying boat. The 10 disciples flew together with the remaining 7 disciples of the Taiching sect. The disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect flew faster than the disciples of the Taiching sect. Xiaohua didn't notice it at first, but after flying for an hour, he finally came to his senses and nodded to himself. The Imperial Thunder sect's cultivation method is lightning cultivation. Although the lightning cultivation method has already changed to the lightning escape technique, the various cultivation methods derived from the lightning escape technique are still effective. When the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples practice cultivation methods, they naturally practice their flying techniques extremely well. Shui Hongshan and the others naturally noticed it. The uneasiness in their hearts when they saw the disciples of the Taiching sect gradually lessened, and a trace of pride appeared on their faces. Unfortunately, this thunder escape technique needs the help of external objects, especially the inner elixir of the Thunder Beast. The inner elixir of two yin and yang attributes is used to create the power of thunder and then turn into the thunder escape technique. This is also the reason why the Imperial Thunder sect recruits disciples with thunder attribute physiques. Unfortunately, a single thunder attribute can only touch the edge of the thunder escape technique. If the thunder escape technique is mastered, it is still far from enough. Moreover, I don't have a thunder attribute physique. With the help of the Phoenix celestial body, I embedded the two inner elixirs of the Thunder Beast into the celestial body and refined the Thunder Escape technique to the realm of Thunder Escape technique. If I didn't witness the vision of Shueishue's foundation establishment, how could I have such an opportunity? However, I'm at a loss as to how others can cultivate this Imperial Lightning Travel technique. After all, they either can't embed the inner elixir into the celestial body, or they already have a thunder attribute physique. How they use the inner elixir is different. Let's not talk about others. The great divine ability that was given to Xiangjili, the thunder escape technique, is the most suitable. He was born from the inner elixir of a male thunder beast, so using the inner elixir of a female thunder beast would make it easier. But how to do it is still very troublesome. Thinking up to here, a bright light flashed through Xiao Hua's mind. It was a great merit he made when he first entered the Imperial Thunder sect. Thunder Devouring Bead. That's right, it's really that item. Xiao Hua's eyes showed a trace of understanding. This item is not only the nemesis of all the Imperial Thunder sect's formations, but also the beginning and end of thunder. Didn't I see the image of the founder of the Imperial Thunder sect, Taoist Master Qian Yun, in the main hall of the Thunder Palace? He was enlightened by comprehending the Thunder Bead and founded the Imperial Thunder sect. Because of this, he ascended. If I can comprehend this item, wouldn't I be able to master the Thunder Escape technique? Sigh, what a pity. The Thunder Devouring Bead is the treasure of the Imperial Thunder sect. Ever since I took it out of my space, it has disappeared without a trace. How could Taoist Master Qian Lei let me comprehend it? It seems that everything depends on fate. Right, what about Qian Qinghua? This guy hibernated and never appeared again. It's been dozens of years, why haven't I seen any traces of him? I'm afraid he has met with disaster. While Xiao Hua's thoughts were running wild, they traveled for another half a day. During this half a day, they actually didn't see any traces of sword cultivators. However, the foothills under their feet were covered with more and more snow, and even the chirping of birds and the language of beasts were rare. Clearly, this place was very remote. Fellow Taoists, we will reach our destination in another half a day. Seeing that the journey was safe, He Fang Yuan's vigilance also weakened. Seeing that flying was very boring, he laughed and said loudly. His voice was not soft, and the snow on the mountain wall was disturbed. At the peak, first, a palm-sized snowflake fell. Then, as the snowflake fell, more and more snowflakes fell. Not long after, an overwhelming amount of snow fell from the sky like a collapsing mountain. The disciples of the Tai Ching sect and the Imperial Lightning sect were flying between two tall mountains. The snow on top of the canyon was extremely powerful, and it covered the entire canyon. Everyone's divine sense swept over and saw that the snowflakes were like dust, and the accumulated snow was like a tide, covering half of the sky. Snow, avalanche? He Fang Yuan was shocked. He really didn't expect that just one sentence from him would cause such a big trouble. He had heard about this avalanche from the guards of Sky Patrol City, but he never thought that he would actually encounter one. Quickly fly. At this moment, no one dared to hesitate. No one wanted to fight against the heavenly might. Although the avalanche was still very far away, it was still an aurora after all. If they were really buried by the snow, even if they were Foundation Establishment cultivators, their vitality would be greatly damaged. Moreover, the most important thing was that he had lost all face. Surging like waves, falling like a mountain peak. Although this small amount of snow is very light and humble, when there is a lot of it, it actually has such great power. Heaven and earth are so mysterious, any inconspicuous place can be a reference for us cultivators. Xiaohua unhurriedly flew behind everyone, allowing the snowflakes to hit his face like white mist. He released his divine sense and carefully observed the gradual formation of the avalanche. It gradually grew from small to large, causing him to sigh with emotion in his heart. Chapter 23:14. Although the avalanche was very powerful, covering half of the canyon, and the rumbling sounds echoed in the canyon, everyone was still cultivators, and most of them were foundation establishment cultivators. They had already escaped from the canyon before the avalanche hit them. He Fang Yuan smiled bitterly, and this time he lowered his voice, "Captain Shui, it's all because of my carelessness, let's not talk about it now." Shui Hongshan seemed to have thought of something, and quickly lowered his voice, "Let's leave quickly. Also, it's best to take a detour." "Yes. That's right." Fang Yuan's face turned cold, and he came to a realization. He released his divine sense and looked around carefully, then he asked, "Captain Shui, how do you think we should take a detour?" "Captain you can decide." Shui Hongshan said humbly, "After all, Captain is my senior brother." "All right." Fang Yuan knew this was not the time to be humble, so he waved his hand and flew towards another direction along the foothills. After waiting for the Imperial Thunder Sect and Tai Ching Sect disciples to fly away for a while, a small human head suddenly popped out from the clean rock wall that had just experienced the avalanche. That human head had a small nose and small eyes like a child's. The avalanche actually happened here? That human head mumbled in a low voice, and then jumped out from the rock wall. It was a dwarf who was less than 2 feet tall. That dwarf's nose twitched a few times, and a trace of joy appeared in his eyes. "Cultivator. There's actually a cultivator here. I found the cultivator's whereabouts." After speaking, the small eyes blinked a few times in joy, and with a stomp of his foot, his body once again disappeared into the rock wall, and just like Xiaohua's earth escape technique, he chased after the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples. How would the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples know that their whereabouts had already been discovered by the dwarf? Over there, they were still extremely careful in concealing their whereabouts, and constantly changing their direction, so that their goal of heading towards Jin Quan Mountain would not be exposed. Another 2 days passed, and just as everyone was about to fly towards Jin Quan Mountain under Fang Yuan's lead, there was a rumbling sound in front of them, and the ground was shaking. Because of Fang Yuan and the other Tai Ching Sect disciples, Xiaohua was too lazy to release his Buddha's sense. Now that he felt it at the same time as everyone else, he immediately released his divine sense. Seeing the situation over there, he was stunned, and then a trace of joy appeared. A few miles ahead to the left, there were more than 20 beast cultivators who had turned into birds. They were circling in the air and attacking the cultivators who were trapped in the air. Below the cultivators, there were more than a dozen giants who were dozens of feet tall. They held huge spiked clubs in their hands and waved them in the air. As for the besieged cultivators, there were about 40 of them. They all wore different Taoist robes and were clearly from different sections. Although these cultivators activated their magic artifacts and fought with all their might, their speed could not compare to the beast cultivators. Not only could their magic artifacts not hit the vital parts of the beast cultivators, many times, they were forced to fall down by the beast cultivators, and they looked very miserable. As for the bird cultivators, although there were fewer of them, their attack power seemed to be on par with the cultivators. However, they only surrounded and pressured the cultivators, not allowing them to escape. They even forced the cultivators to fall into the giants' attack range. Looking at the ground, there were several corpses, and they were all badly mutilated. Obviously, they were all done by the giants' terrifying spiked clubs. Seeing such a pressing situation, Shui Hongshan hesitated. The cultivators who were trapped in the air by the beast cultivators and giants were all foundation establishment cultivators, but even they were in such a miserable state, running for their lives, and even struggling at death's door. How could he and the other Imperial Thunder Sect disciples be able to get away with it? Not only him, even He Fang Yuan was hesitating. He was different from Cui Hongshan. He had already lost 3 Tai Ching sect disciples, and if he got involved in this killing situation, he might suffer even more losses. Moreover, the beast cultivators and giants did not seem to have noticed their arrival. If they escaped now, it was still not too late. The scene was unusually quiet, and it was truly a torture. The Imperial Thunder Sect disciples involuntarily looked at Xiao Hua. "Damn it, why are you looking at me?" Xiao Hua was somewhat angry in his heart. He really didn't want to reveal too much of his strength in front of others. However, he also knew that these 20 or so bird cultivators and a dozen giants were absolutely not something that these disciples could deal with. He really had no choice but to take action. He Fang Yuan was naturally astute. When he saw Cui Hongshan and the others looking at Xiao Hua, he immediately understood. Of course, he also looked at Xiao Hua. Seeing He Fang Yuan looking at Xiao Hua, the Tai Ching sect disciples also looked at Xiao Hua. In an instant, the gazes of the 2 sects disciples fell on Xiao Hua. "Go!" Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, but he could not show it on his face. He waved his hand and said only one word, then slowly flew forward. "Go!" Cui Hongshan's heart relaxed. He waved his hand and said loudly, "No matter which sect's disciples are from, since they are Dao sect cultivators, they are our fellow disciples. We cannot let them fight alone. Yes, we will follow Captain Cui's orders." Dui Chi Meng and the others replied loudly. With Xiao Hua's guarantee, their hearts tightened. Seeing the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples so valiant, the Tai Ching Sect disciples felt slightly guilty. They immediately felt that they were small, so they also shouted, "That's right, what joy is there in life, what fear is there in death? If we don't take action now, we will have inner demons in the future, how can our cultivation progress?" Kill! The group of Tai Ching Sect disciples and Imperial Thunder Sect disciples all flew to the front and actually surpassed Xiao Hua. They charged towards the group that was already in a precarious situation. This is great. At this time, the besieged Dao sect cultivators naturally discovered that there were reinforcements. Their hearts felt incomparably warm, as if they had encountered a sunny day amidst a gloomy rain. When the bird cultivators heard the commotion, they were first startled. However, when they saw that it was only a dozen or so Foundation establishment cultivators, their hearts relaxed. They each opened their mouths and cried out, then beat their wings and did their best to kill the besieged cultivators. Attack! Cui Hongshan and the others did not dare to be negligent. They flew high to avoid coming into contact with the giants on the ground. They had already taken out their respective magic tools and attacked the bird cultivators. The bird cultivators' figures were very fast. They beat their wings and flew up, easily dodging the magic tools. Then, they expanded the range of their attacks and surrounded the Imperial Thunder Sect and Tai Ching Sect disciples who came as reinforcements. There were only 20 or so bird cultivators, but they actually dared to deal with 50 cultivators. The gap in the encirclement was definitely much larger. The 40 or so cultivators who were previously besieged saw the gap in the encirclement expand, and their faces revealed joy. They knew that they had a chance to escape. However, they could only watch. No one could really escape. Chapter 23:15. But just as these cultivators turned around and were about to attack the bird cultivators with their magic artifacts, a voice called out, "Senior Brother Jiang, I'm really sorry." As the voice rang out, an early-stage Foundation establishment disciple with a well-built body wearing the Daoist robes of the Nanming sect broke away from the group of cultivators. He charged through the gap between 2 bird cultivators and flew into the distance. "Zheng Shua! You!" roared a mid-Foundation establishment Nanming sect disciple. Just as he was about to rebuke Zheng Shua, however, a few more disciples suddenly flew out from the group of Lightning Rider sect disciples who had been brandishing their dermic artifacts to meet up with the Lightning Rider sect disciples. They didn't even bother to greet them. They were even worse than Zheng Shuo. You wait, you wait. Cui Hongshan was stupefied. He really hadn't expected that when he and the others came to help, these disciples would actually abandon them and flee by themselves. The escape of these disciples was not a big deal, but it tugged at the last heartstrings in the hearts of the cultivators. Even the cultivators with the most solid hearts were moved. Everyone had to face a test in this life and death situation, whether it was for themselves or their conscience. Xiao Hua looked at them coldly, and then at the beast cultivators who were surrounding them but not attacking. He already understood that this was done by the beast cultivators on purpose. He Fang Yuan's earlier conjecture that beast cultivators and weapon cultivators were brainless was instantly dispelled. Stop right there. The captains from the various sects were all furious and hurriedly shouted. Unfortunately, it would have been better if they hadn't shouted. Once they shouted, even more cultivators took the chance to escape. In just a moment, nearly 20 cultivators had already escaped through the gap between the bird cultivators' encirclement. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the group of beast cultivators surrounded the remaining 40 or so cultivators. In other words, the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect disciples had come to replace these cultivators, and these cultivators had replaced the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect disciples, and escaped. At this moment, a Tai Ching sect disciple couldn't take it anymore and glared at Xiao Hua. His eyes were filled with hatred, and he didn't even greet Xiao Hua as he flew towards a gap that seemed to be right in front of Xiao Hua. However, just as he flew out of the gap, Xiao Hua said urgently, "Quickly come back." Only a fool would reply. The disciple's figure passed by the bird cultivator and he was extremely happy. Now that he had the time to spare, he sneered back. Unfortunately, just as he spoke, the four-eared beast cultivator on his left suddenly flashed and dashed toward his back like a bolt of black lightning. The bird cultivator's flying speed was simply too fast and he wasn't far from the Tai Ching sect disciple. Although the Tai Ching sect disciple was extremely vigilant, he still only noticed the bird cultivator when he was a few feet away from him. Whoosh! The bird cultivator's wings suddenly swept out like an extremely hard artifact towards the Tai Ching disciple's neck. The Tai Ching sect disciple had already activated his magic treasure and attacked without hesitation. Wang, the sound was precisely the shape of a plum blossom. Flower petals spread out from the magic treasure and enveloped the bird cultivator who was about to pounce over. The bird cultivator didn't dodge at all. With a muffled zzz sound, the flower petals exploded around the bird cultivator and completely enveloped him. A trace of joy flashed through the Tai Ching sect disciple's eyes and he was about to use his magic power to fly away again. The bird cultivator, who was originally a bit crooked from the flower petals, suddenly opened his mouth and his body swayed even more strangely. He immediately broke through the magic treasure's attack and instantly closed in on the Tai Ching sect disciple. At the same time, his beak-like mouth suddenly pecked forward and chiseled into the Tai Ching sect disciple's shoulder. The beast cultivator's beak broke through the Tai Ching sect disciple's defensive yellow talisman and tore off a large chunk of flesh from the disciple's shoulder, revealing the pale white bone inside. Since the Tai Ching sect disciple was injured, his body was already crooked and he slowly fell from the sky. He was barely able to stabilize himself in midair. At this moment, all the cultivators who were looking at this disciple had a trace of pity in their eyes. They actually couldn't bear to see him die. Bam! With a loud bang, a huge mace appeared behind the Tai Ching sect's disciple, causing a gust of wind to blow as it appeared behind him. The Tai Ching sect disciple's defensive light that had been bitten through by the bird cultivator was immediately annihilated the moment it touched the spiked club. The spiked club hit the Tai Ching sect disciple's head almost without any resistance. Like a watermelon being smashed, red and white, a disgusting smell of blood burst out. All of this happened in just a few breaths of time. Xiao Hua had time to give a warning, and Fang Yuan didn't even have time to shout angrily before the Tai Ching sect disciple died. Their broken corpses fell to the ground, mixing with the dead disciples from before. Hiss! Everyone from the Tai Ching sect and Imperial Thunder sect sucked in a breath of cold air. They finally understood why so many cultivators were surrounded but none dared to escape. However, before these people could recover from their shock, another strange thing happened. Opposite the dead Tai Ching sect disciple, another Imperial Thunder sect disciple also quickly rushed towards the gap between the two bird cultivators. This disciple, is he sick? The cultivators were stunned. After all, although this Imperial Thunder sect disciple's flying speed was fast, it was only slightly faster than the Tai Ching sect disciple. It was far from surpassing the flying speed of a bird cultivator. However, the Imperial Thunder sect disciple actually had a puzzled expression. That's right, it was puzzled, not astonishment, grief, or any other expression. Because this person was none other than Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's figure flew towards the gap between the two bird cultivators. His choice of location was extremely good, it was right between the two. The two beast cultivators naturally stared at the scene in front of them. When they saw Xiao Hua flying, they also followed him. However, after flying for a while, they stopped again after flying for less than half a foot. This was because they both saw that the other party had already moved. Of course, they stopped at the same time. When they saw each other stop, they flew up at the same time. However, after flying for a foot, they seemed to have a tacit understanding and stopped at the same time. They waited for the other to attack while they guarded the encirclement. Damn it, is this an act? If Xiao Hua wasn't a genuine cultivator, the cultivators in the encirclement would have suspected that Xiao Hua was friends with these two bird cultivators. Ga. At this time, the two bird cultivators were also angry and seemed to be criticizing each other. At the same time, they no longer hesitated and flapped their wings, attacking Xiao Hua from the left and right. Ouch! Xiao Hua looked as panicked as the Tai Ching sect disciple. He was very afraid of the bird cultivators who suddenly closed in on him. He didn't even take out his magic tool. With a wave of his hand, dozens of fireball talismans were shot out. Rumble! These fireball talismans were actually of the highest quality. They set off a heat wave that soared to the sky. They were even more powerful than the magic tools of the Tai Ching sect disciple. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's opponents were bird cultivators who were famous for their body techniques. This top-grade fireball talisman only managed to burn a few pieces of the bird cultivator's feathers. Not only was it unable to kill them, it had even angered them. Ga, two extremely angry bird cries resounded. The two bird cultivators flew out from the flames and pecked at Xiao Hua's shoulders like lightning. Xiao Hua's figure rapidly descended, wanting to dodge the attacks of the two bird cultivators. Below him, a giant also raised its wolf-tooth club, preparing to attack Xiao Hua's butt. Serves him right. This was the thought of all the cultivators except for the Imperial Thunder sect disciple and Fang Yuan. Even the Tai Ching sect disciples felt a trace of satisfaction in their hearts. In their eyes, the initial stage foundation establishment Xiao Hua was already a dead man. Facing two bird cultivators and a giant, and falling into such a passive situation, even a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to escape, right? Just as everyone's thoughts became active again, retracting their gazes from Xiao Hua's body and looking at the gap next to Xiao Hua after he lured away the two bird cultivators, a golden light flashed in front of everyone's eyes. Immediately, they heard Xiao Hua shout, "Damn it, you dare to hit my butt. I'd like to see if your strength is greater or mine." Immediately after, in front of everyone's eyes, Xiao Hua suddenly took out an ordinary stick that was 2 feet long and as thick as the mouth of a bull. He actually calmly twirled the stick in his hand in an extremely gaudy manner before smashing it towards the incomparably huge mace. Woo! This was the sound of the giant's arm, which was as thick as an adult's waist, swinging the wolf-tooth club. This whistling sound was so loud that it covered all the movements in the surroundings. Even when the giant stepped on the ground trembled slightly. Naturally, the sound of the wind on Xiao Hua's stick was also concealed. Or perhaps Xiao Hua's stick didn't make any sound at all. When the group of cultivators heard the sound of the wind and looked at Xiao Hua again, they couldn't understand how the two bird cultivators suddenly fell from the sky. Although they didn't seem to have any injuries, in their divine senses, the two bird cultivators were completely dead. What is going on? While they were bewildered, Fang Yuan's eyes shined with extraordinary splendor. It was not that he didn't have confidence in Xiao Hua, just like now, when Xiao Hua was competing with the giant in terms of strength, he firmly believed that Xiao Hua wouldn't be at a disadvantage. But when fighting with the two bird cultivators earlier, or trying to escape from the two bird cultivators, he didn't have any confidence in Xiao Hua. Naturally, Fang Yuan had been staring at Xiao Hua all along. He had an involuntary conviction in his heart. He firmly believed that Xiao Hua wasn't a cultivator who would run away without a fight. Sure enough, when Fang Yuan's eyelids slightly blinked, that golden light came from Xiao Hua's hand. He simply couldn't see where this golden light came from. It was as if it was just the outline of a flood dragon, and with just a flash of golden light, it passed through the necks of the two arrogant bird cultivators. Immediately after, the two bird cultivators fell from the sky without even making a sound. Chapter 23:16. However, Fang Yuan could clearly see that in the short time the golden light disappeared and the staff was raised, Xiao Hua reached out and took away the storage pouches on the waists of the two beast cultivators. Dang! A deafening sound resounded. That intense fluctuation came from the place where the staff and the mace collided. Just like the fireball talisman that Xiao Hua threw out earlier, it instantly washed away all the snow and other objects within a radius of 6 meters. Immediately after, that fluctuation was like the surging waves of the sea, rushing out in all directions. In the air, whether it was the Dao sect cultivators or the beast cultivators, they were all unable to stand steadily from the impact of this sound wave. Even the Imperial Thunder sect's Qi refinement disciples and the two beast cultivators' bodies swayed a few times before falling from the air. Ha ha ha! Xiao Hua's loud laughter resounded again after the sound wave. Good strength, good strength. Take another strike from this young master's staff. As he spoke, Xiao Hua's figure flew up once again. That long staff streaked across the sky, emitting a whimper sound, and smashed towards the giant who was standing there foolishly. His arm was already completely numb, and his mace was also twisted in the middle. Looking at the giant's feet again, that pair of large feet had already sunk into the ground. It was actually smashed into the ground by Xiao Hua. Dang! Another sound resounded. This sound was clearly not as powerful as the first one, but it still lingered in everyone's ears. But this time, that giant's mace was completely bent, it was simply unable to take shape. Even the giant's arms were trembling, powerlessly hanging down. His face was pale, and his eyes flashed with fear. Take another strike from this young master's staff. Xiao Hua was unforgiving. The staff was lifted up again as if it was light. Something shocking happened. Before Xiao Hua could lift up the staff, that giant actually pulled out his feet from the ground. Without saying anything, he dragged the mace and flew towards the distance. That large foot smashed into the ground, causing the ground to tremble. Don't run! Take another strike from this young master's staff. Xiao Hua's figure suddenly flew up, as if he was chasing after that giant. However, with a slight sway of his figure, he actually arrived at the nearest giant and smashed down with his long staff. That giant was still puzzled. He didn't know what the escaping giant meant, but Xiao Hua's staff hit his forehead. Needless to say, the giant raised his mace and charged forward. It was simply a replica of the previous one. Another huge tremor, another wave of sound was set off, and everyone was thrown into the air. What was different from before was that this giant didn't wait for Xiao Hua to pick up the long rod again. He dragged the spiked club back and turned around, catching up with the giant that had fled earlier. That graceful turn of his body. TSK, it was simply too vivid. It did not matter if this giant ran away. Just like the Tao sect disciple who ran away first, the thought of running away immediately rose in the hearts of all the giants. They did not wait for Xiao Hua to fly towards them. Instead, they took the initiative and carried the wolf-tooth club on their shoulders without any hesitation. Then, they spread their big feet, which were rarely seen in the Dawn Rain continent, and fled without a trace. The bird cultivators who had barely stabilized themselves in the air were stunned. They also seemed to have woken up from a dream. They had just woken up from the destruction of 2 bird cultivators. A bird cultivator cried out. Without any hesitation, he soared into the sky and charged towards the clouds. When the other bird cultivators saw this, they also cried out and flapped their wings, wanting to fly away with that bird cultivator. You can stay here. A trace of fierceness flashed through Xiao Hua's eyes. His figure also flew, and he was actually much faster than the bird cultivators. He charged towards the bird cultivator who had just killed the Tai Ching sect disciple. That bird cultivator was greatly alarmed. Without any hesitation, he charged towards Xiao Hua, extending his unusually sharp beak. However, just as he extended his beak, he seemed to have realized something. His wings flapped, and his figure quickly turned around, drawing an arc in the air as he tried to escape again. At this moment, Xiao Hua's figure was only about 3 meters away from him. At such a close distance, how could Xiao Hua let him escape? The long staff in his hand danced again, and like a jade pillar supporting the heavens, it stabbed straight towards the bird cultivator's abdomen. Seeing that it was about to hit the bird cultivator's body suddenly emitted a tricolored brilliance. The bird cultivator's flying speed suddenly increased, and the distance between them immediately increased again. Damn it, if it's half a foot longer, I'll stop. Xiao Hua cursed angrily. Just as he was about to activate the hibernating lightning escape, something strange happened. That 2-foot-long staff suddenly grew half a foot. This. Xiao Hua was shocked. Of course, even if the staff grew half a foot longer, it still wouldn't be able to hit the bird cultivator. This half a foot that suddenly grew was not seen by anyone. In a hurry, Xiao Hua didn't have time to check. He activated the hibernating lightning escape and suddenly sped up. The long staff suddenly struck out, hitting the bird cultivator's abdomen. A mouthful of blood was spat out. The bird cultivator screamed miserably, curled up his wings, and fell from Xiao Hua's side. Xiao Hua casually took the bird cultivator's storage pouch. If he didn't pay any more attention, that bird cultivator's body would have long been smashed to pieces by the long staff. How could he still be alive? Don't go. Leave a few more behind. Xiao Hua shouted, but his body slowed down. He no longer used the hibernating lightning escape. The bird cultivators were scared by Xiao Hua's beating. These few shouts actually caused the bird cultivators' bodies to sway slightly. They really thought that Xiao Hua had caught up to them. When they saw that Xiao Hua was only standing in place and didn't chase after them, they finally relaxed. They didn't even dare to look back and directly rushed into the sky. When they couldn't see him anymore, they fled far away. Damn it, did this young master go too far again? Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over. He saw that the dozens of people below him were standing there in a daze. They were all looking at him with an inconceivable expression. Even the people from the Imperial Thunder sect were the same. Yes, this time, Xiao Hua didn't use the Phoenix Dharma body. Even so, he still fiercely scared away dozens of giants with his strength alone. He even killed 3 bird cultivators and drove away the bird cultivators who they saw as snakes and scorpions. They didn't have any killing methods at all. Was this still a Foundation establishment cultivator? Forget it, Xiao Hua sighed and closed his eyes. The true essence in his body also stopped flowing. His body fell from the sky upside down. Xiao Hua, Ming Mao and Dui Ling were already prepared. As if their hearts were connected, they simultaneously flew into the sky, wanting to catch Xiao Hua. Good, Cui Hongshan, I'll remember you. Xiao Hua was angry. I saved you again. Why aren't you hurrying over to catch me? If I let 2 female cultivators catch me, how am I going to explain it to Xue Xue? Io, just as he fell into Ming Mao's embrace, Xiao Hua, finally, woke up. He forced himself to stand in the air and said to Ming Mao and Dui Ling with a bitter smile, many thanks to the 2 of you. This Xiao, cough cough. Immediately after, Xiao Hua coughed and his entire face turned red. Chapter 23:17. Junior brother Xiao, are you hurt? Ming Mao asked with concern. I'm fine. Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out an elixir. He put it into his mouth without even looking at it. Then he said while gasping, I'm exhausted, and my magic power is also exhausted. I need to rest for a while. Then he looked at Zhenhua and said angrily, Nephew Zhen, why don't you come and support your uncle? Yes, I will go now. Zhenhua stared blankly for a moment, then his face was filled with joy. He hurriedly flew over and firmly supported Xiao Hua. At this moment, the rest of the people came to themselves. The shock on their faces was replaced by respect. Then they heard a surprised voice, you are Xiao Hua, the disciple of the Imperial Thunder faction who lifted the divine object from the sky at the Feather Immortal gathering of the Taiching sect? Yes, it must be you. Yes, it's Xiao Hua. I can't be wrong. Another cultivator also yelled with elation, I also participated in the Feather Immortal gathering, and I was stunned by fellow Daoist Zhao's divine power. Who would have thought that we would be reunited again after so many years? Fellow cultivator Zhao's divine power showed off again and saved us. Xiao Hua was stunned. He looked up and saw 2 surprised faces. Then he looked at their robes. One of them was from the Kunlun faction, and the other was from the Utopia faction. However, these 2 people's faces were unfamiliar to Xiao Hua. He couldn't remember them at all. After all, the Imperial Thunder faction wasn't in the same group as these 2 factions at the Feather Immortal gathering. Xiao Hua didn't fight with them in the second stage. Fellow cultivator Xiao, you were famous at the Feather Immortal gathering. The disciple of the Kunlun faction flew over and said while cupping his hands, I'm Kuxingxi from the Kunlun faction. Fellow cultivator Xiao, you don't remember me, but I have a deep impression of you. Back then, you made a name for yourself in one fell swoop. This coup is truly envious. I'm Yang Fangcheng from the Utopia faction. The disciple of the Utopia faction said while cupping his hands, fellow cultivator Xiao, thank you for saving my life. Oh, you are from the Feather Immortal gathering. Xiao Hua thought to himself. Then, he weakly cupped his hands and laughed in a low and deep voice, so it's an old acquaintance of mine. What a coincidence. It wasn't a life-saving grace, it was just to save himself. Alas, it's actually a fluke. I'm just a paper tiger. If those giants and beast cultivators hadn't been scared away by me, I would have been in your care. Junior brother Xiao has already done his best. He Fang Yuan also flew over and said with a smile, but with junior brother Zhao's killing of 3 beast cultivators, they already have no way to trap us. As long as we work together to fight them, we will definitely be able to escape. Next, He Fang Yuan cupped his fists and smiled at Kuxingxi and Yang Fangcheng. Tai Ching sect's He Fang Yuan greets the 2 senior brothers. Back then at the Feather Immortal Assembly, I had the chance to meet the 2 of you. Hello, senior brother He. Ku Xingxi and Yang Fangqing hurriedly returned the greeting. Back then, we parted ways at Tai Ching Sect's Hao domain. Senior brother, he was the first Feather Immortal Assembly disciple to reach Foundation establishment. We have been envious of you for a long time. Hearing this, a trace of shame appeared on He Fang Yuan's face. He glanced at Xiao Hua and smiled. This foolish brother was lucky enough to be a step ahead in the Foundation establishment stage, but that is all in the future. Now look at the difference between me and junior brother Xiao, it is really 1,000 miles. Huh, senior brother you should compare yourself to us. Junior brother Xiao has the appearance of a celestial being, ordinary people can't compare to him. Ku Xingxi laughed loudly. These three people were Xiao Hua's old acquaintances. As soon as they met, they were very lively. First, they gathered around Xiao Hua. As they chatted and laughed, the people around them also gathered around. Their eyes were filled with envy as they looked at the three people. Another few cultivators flew up a few steps, cupped their hands, and said to Xiao Hua with a smile, "This humble Taoist and the others thank senior brother Xiao." Hearing their words, they clearly wanted to befriend him. But Xiao Hua's face was deathly pale. He waved his hand and weakly said, This Xiao is completely exhausted right now. I'm afraid I can't meet all of you. If there's anything you need, you should talk to my captain." After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua closed his eyes and no longer paid attention to the crowd. Everyone saw this and did not dare to force him. They could not determine Xiao Hua's cultivation level and strength, they only thought he was truly exhausted. They hurriedly and carefully flew towards Cui Hongshan and cupped their fists. Of course, Tai Ching Sect and Imperial Thunder Sect came together. He Fang Yuan also brought Tai Ching Sect's disciples to greet the disciples of the other Dao sections. Xiao Hua closed his eyes and released his Buddhist sense. Seeing the sincerity and flattery of the many disciples, he could not help but sigh. Thinking of the pleasure of killing the bird cultivator just now, a kind of desire suddenly appeared in his heart. That kind of desire was the desire for freedom, the desire to soar into the sky. It was as if the Dao sect disciples here had become a burden to him, a burden that made it difficult for him to use his divine abilities. Even at this moment, Xiao Hua felt that Imperial Thunder Sect was his shackle. He did not have the freedom he had when he was a lone cultivator. At that time, although Xiao Hua did not have a cultivation method, he could act recklessly and use all of his divine abilities without hesitation. But after arriving at the Imperial Thunder Sect, although he had access to cultivation methods and medicinal pills, he had no choice but to conceal himself. He was afraid that if he revealed too much about himself, the master would discover something fishy about him. It is hard to live up to the reputation, sometimes it is indeed like this. Xiao Hua sighed, but then he laughed inwardly. If I did not enter Imperial Thunder Sect, I would not have had so many fortuitous encounters. Even when I was chased by that old ghost Jing Ru, where could I have run to? Wouldn't I have been killed? This young master is being insatiable. But, on this Dawn Rain continent, there are giants? Back then, when Master said that I had the special bloodline of giants, he only said that there were giants in the Gui Sea. Even the Blood Ray Island disciple who claimed to have an ancient bloodline was not as tall as this giant. I just don't know if this giant can really find out about my origins. Xiao Hua guessed inwardly. But thinking about the giant's silly appearance, Xiao Hua shook his head vigorously in his heart. He did not want to have anything to do with them. After the group of cultivators exchanged greetings, they began to discuss their itinerary. The few team leaders whispered to each other, knowing that they were heading to Golden Spring Mountain for a mission. And this place was not far from Golden Spring Mountain. With so many cultivators gathered together, it was obviously not easy to conceal their whereabouts. If the location of Golden Spring Mountain was exposed, not only would it be disadvantageous to the Spirit Stone Mine, it would also be detrimental to their own safety. Therefore, the few team leaders discussed for a while and decided to use the old method, which was to split up and enter Golden Spring Mountain from different directions. Of course, since these few teams had already gathered here, the few team leaders naturally had to exchange messaging charms. They even agreed on the distance between each other to prevent the situation of being surrounded by the bird cultivators and giants again. At this moment, Cui Hongshan's messaging charms were snatched away by the other team leaders. Obviously, they had placed all their hopes on Xiao Hua. After the arrangements were made, everyone cupped their hands and released their divine senses. Then, according to the plan just now, they each chose a route and flew up. Let's go. Cui Hongshan saw that everyone had left and waved his hand. Yes. Zhen Minghui and the others replied in a low voice, but they did not get up. However, Dui Qimeng said in a low voice, Xiao Hua's body has not recovered. I'm afraid it's not suitable for him to move now. In my opinion, it's better for him to rest for a while. Cui Hongshan had considered this, but the other apprentices of the Kunlun sect and the Utopia faction all wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Cui Hongshan also felt a little nervous. He wanted to take Xiao Huafei with him for a while before stopping to rest. It's better for us to leave first. Cui Hongshan thought for a while and said, the beast cultivator and the giant have just been defeated here. Who knows, they might come back. Xiao Hua was very brave just now. I'm afraid he won't be able to fight now. If we stay here, we'll be the prey of the beast cultivator and the giant. It's really unwise. Moreover, the 10 people of my Imperial Thunder Sect's first small team are still here. I want to quickly bring you all into Golden Spring Mountain. This way, I can be at ease. Cui Hongshan's words were very selfless. If others heard it, they would definitely feel that he didn't care about his own junior brother's injury and only cared about everyone's life and death. Xiao Hua could naturally hear it. He was slightly angry in his heart and secretly said, if it wasn't for me, I'm afraid your wish would have been strangled to death by the sword cultivator. But after thinking for a while, wasn't this also his own wish? Moreover, if the beast cultivator was really at a loss and the group of people came back, should he attack or not? Forget it. Xiao Hua sighed, opened his eyes and said in a low voice, I'm fine. I'll listen to fellow Cui. Let Zhenhua support me at the end. Okay. Dui Qimeng nodded. She knew that the soul of the entire small team was Xiao Hua. If he really wanted to rest, then he must rest. Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui's hearts were no longer at a loss. They looked at each other and Zhen Minghui said with a smile, I'll lead the way. Captain Cui will bring up the rear. That's fine too. Cui Hongshan slightly hesitated before agreeing. After waiting for everyone to fly, Xiao Hua also flew up with Zhenhua. Cui Hongshan urged his magic power and flew behind Xiao Hua. Fellow Cui, let me ask you a question. Xiao Hua didn't turn his head and asked in a low voice. Speak less. Cui Hongshan said coldly, Master always said that you have a lot of questions and don't do proper work. Sure enough, it's true. Last time, you used a magic treasure and a Dharma body to deal with the sword cultivator. This time, you actually used some divine artifact. Don't you think you have too many tricks up your sleeves? Why do you have the same tone as Master? Xiao Hua sneered, if I didn't use the wishful rod, do you think those giants would be scared away? Oh. Wishful rod? That's a good name. Cui Hongshan nodded and said, is that the thing you obtained at the Feather Immortal Assembly? Chapter 23:18. Yes or no? Do I need to tell you? Xiao Hua replied snappily, you haven't answered my question yet. However, Xiao Hua's heart was also happy. Wishful staff, this name was really easy to come up with. It was a gift from the heavens. He didn't say it out loud, but it actually sounded good. You haven't said what the question is. How can I answer? Cui Hongshan replied bluntly. Pfft. It was none other than Zhenhua, who couldn't help but laugh. I'm scared. Zhenhua whispered, I'm scared that the giant will come again. Humph, you're that scared? Why don't you show me how scared you are? If you're scared and don't come out, I'll drag you to the giant 20 miles away. Xiaohua scolded, you're so young and you haven't learned anything. You only know how to lie. Yes. Zhenhua said in panic, I was wrong. Uncle Xiao, don't be angry. TSK, why are you venting your anger on a child? Cui Hongshan couldn't figure out whether Xiaohua was scolding him or not. He could only reply, how do you know there's a giant 20 miles away? I remember Master said that you used the jade kirin fruit to stimulate your divine sense. There's no reason for your divine sense to be farther than mine. Why should I tell you the reason? I'm lying, okay? Xiaohua rolled his eyes, you haven't answered my question yet. What's the question? Cui Hongshan was a little anxious. Those disciples of the Extreme Happiness faction, Kunlun sect, Immortal Ascension sect, and Blue Li sect. How will they be dealt with? Xiaohua asked in a low voice. Cui Hongshan glanced at Zhenhua and said, if we weren't there, they ran away. As long as the disciples of the 4 sects don't investigate, who will know? But these 10 people ran away in front of us. The disciples of the 4 sects didn't dare to cover it up. They could only report it directly. Otherwise, they would also be punished. The fate of these 10 disciples was already decided the moment they ran away. They're bound to die. The 4 sects absolutely can't tolerate them running away when they're fighting. Especially, with the reinforcements of the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect. I understand. Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a trace of sternness. These people really deserve to die. Did they not think about it? We risked our lives to come here, yet they, actually hardened their hearts and fled? Alas, the test of life and death is too great. Cui Hongshan sighed. Even I am a little hesitant, let alone them. Although the captains of the 4 sects didn't say anything, it seems that they will only report this matter to the higher-ups and won't take any other measures. If those disciples manage to escape alive, they can only become rogue cultivators and face the joint pursuit of the 3 cultivation kingdoms. Xiaohua nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Cui Hongshan also flew up carefully. From time to time, he would vigilantly release his spiritual force to prevent the bird cultivator from attacking again. Fellow Taoist Cui, you don't need to be so careful. The beast cultivator and giant have long been scared out of their wits. They won't chase after you. Xiaohua couldn't help but remind Cui Hongshan when he saw how cautious he was. Better safe than sorry. Cui Hongshan laughed coldly. However, it was clear that he had relaxed after this. He only flew slowly and did not extend his consciousness too far. It was a pity. Although Xiaohua's Buddhist awareness was powerful, he was still careless. Just as they flew away for less than a cigarette, the dwarf who had chased after them once again emerged from the place where he had killed the bird cultivator. Hiss, the dwarf sucked in a breath of cold air. The small head that had just emerged immediately shrank back. It wasn't until a long time later that he tremblingly revealed his small nose. He vigorously sniffed a few times before revealing half of his body again. He looked left and right. Looking at his appearance, he was afraid that if there was even the slightest sign of trouble, he would escape into the ground and escape. However, apart from the sound of the wind, the snow, and the smell of blood that lingered for a long time, there really wasn't any other danger. The dwarf finally jumped out of the ground and carefully looked around. He sniffed again and looked in the direction that Xiaohua and the others had flown in. His face was full of panic and hesitation. Finally, the dwarf decisively turned around and escaped into the ground, heading into the distance. In the end, this cowardly dwarf did not dare to continue to chase down. Quan Jin Mountain was not far away. However, after flying for half a day, a huge mountain range could be seen in front of them. This mountain range was not tall, but it was extremely large and covered an extremely wide area. The mountain range was covered in ice for thousands of miles. It was as smooth as a mirror and there were no spirit grasses or spirit trees to be seen. Apart from cultivators, there were absolutely no other signs of human habitation. Even birds that spread their wings and flew would not come here. This is Quan Jin Mountain? Xiao Hua's eyes shone brightly as he looked at the endless mountain range in the distance. He unconsciously frowned. This situation, apart from the ice and snow, was not much different from Qi Shu mountain range. Even that cold place was extremely similar. Let's go. Cui Hongshan did not say anything else. He directly flew to the front and took out the team leader's token. He carefully looked at it and raised his head to look again. He waved his hand and flew towards a certain place in the mountain range. Xiao Hua's Buddhist awareness also saw that far away in the mountain range, Tai Ching sect's disciples were also flying up under He Fang Yuan's lead. It seemed that their direction was not the same as Imperial Thunder sects. Sure enough, Cui Hongshan brought Xiao Hua and the others to another place in the mountain range. When they reached the mountain range, Xiao Hua looked around. This was actually a continuous stretch of green pine forest. Those green pine trees were over 100 feet tall. The crisp pine needles were condensed into a layer of sparkling ice, swaying in the breeze. Occasionally, there would be pine branches that could not withstand the pressure of the snow falling down, making a silent sound. The place where they landed, apart from a thick layer of snow, there were also some rotten withered branches. How could one tell that this was a spirit stone mine? Xiao Hua naturally understood that this was definitely a concealment formation. However, he released his divine sense and looked for a long time but did not see any clues. He unconsciously shook his head, sigh, there are indeed many experts in this world. This young master's formation skills can be considered to have some accomplishments, but I can't even see a little bit of it. Flying down from the mountain range, Cui Hongshan activated his magic power. The captain's token emitted a faint brilliance, and a fist-sized brilliance flew out from the token. Then, it transformed into a sparrow-shaped bird. It flapped its wings and flew into the depths of the mountain forest. Everyone did not say anything. They all followed the little bird and gradually went deeper into the forest. That light was also strange. It did not fly high at all. It only flew slowly between the pine trees that were not too dense, like a fluttering butterfly. After flying for a little more than half a day, that light stopped. It suddenly flew several feet and disappeared into a pine tree that was only the size of a person. Chapter 23:19. Huh? Is it here? Xiao Hua was not in a hurry. He looked at the pine tree and used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. Zhen Minghui and the others were also puzzled. It seemed that there was no fluctuation of magic power in the surroundings. When Xiao Hua and the others saw Cui Hongshan's movements, they suddenly realized. Cui Hongshan walked to the pine tree and gestured up and down. His body flew up about 2 zhang and extended a finger, pointing at an inconspicuous spot on the tree. However, there was no movement from him at all. But Cui Hongshan was not surprised. His body landed again. This time, he actually lowered his body and pointed at the spot opposite the tree 3 inches from the ground. Then, he left the pine tree again and waited quietly for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Then, he flew up again and pointed at the tree spots high up. After Cui Hongshan pointed at it 3 times, he flew to the side of the pine tree again. This was different again. It was actually 3 tree spots in a triangular shape. There was nothing special at all. Cui Hongshan pointed 4 times. When Cui Hongshan flew to another place, Xiao Hua simply stopped looking. Needless to say, there was some mechanism on the pine tree. It was not set up by magic. What was the use of looking at such a complicated method? But the strange thing was, when Xiao Hua released his divine sense and carefully looked under the pine tree, where was there any trace of magic? There wasn't even a single passageway or mechanism. Damn, this is really interesting. Xiao Hua smiled and released his Buddhist sense. His Buddhist sense was still the best. Xiao Hua finally found a trace of abnormality. But before he could take a closer look, Cui Hongshan smiled and said, "All right, let's go in." After speaking, Cui Hongshan's figure floated and entered first. Xiao Hua looked up and saw that about 2 zhang above the pine tree, there was a hole the size of a person. It was like the pine tree's eye, looking at him with ridicule. Okay, Xiao Hua did not look anymore. He withdrew his Buddhist sense and followed everyone into the hole. The inside of the tree hole was extremely dark. When his divine sense swept, the inner wall of the tree actually blocked everyone's divine sense. I'm afraid this isn't some ordinary pine tree. Xiao Hua had already understood that if it wasn't a strange spiritual wood, it wouldn't be able to block his spiritual sense. Cui Hongshan led the way in front and kept flying downwards. After flying for thousands of feet, or even thousands of feet, a misty brilliance appeared in front of their eyes. It was the light of the bright flower stone. At this time, the space gradually became bigger. The entire downward passage was actually an inverted loophole. Oh my god, this is incredible. Xiao Hua's divine sense slightly swept out, he was just as curious as everyone else. He couldn't help but secretly sigh in his heart, this spirit stone vein is really a secret. It's so deep underground that it's thousands of feet deep, whose divine sense would be so bored to check under this desolate pine forest. It's no wonder the sword cultivators didn't notice it even though it was so close to Han country. Who are you? An indescribably cold voice suddenly emerged from beneath Cui Hongshan's feet. Cui Hongshan immediately stopped descending and looked towards the direction of the voice. He saw that on the stone wall of the tunnel, there was a cave that was half the height of a person. A cultivator dressed in pitch-black clothes was sitting cross-legged there and asked him without raising his head. I'm Cui Hongshan, the captain of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first team. I'm leading my team of 10 people to Mount Quanjin to support the fellow cultivators from Sky Patrol City. Cui Hongshan saw that it was a cultivator in the middle stage of Foundation establishment. He didn't dare to hastily report his name and took out the captain's token. Oh, so it's a fellow cultivator from the Imperial Thunder Sect. That cultivator raised his head. His entire face was covered by a cloak. He stretched out his hand and said, I'm a disciple of Mount Quanjin Sky Patrol City. I thank the Imperial Thunder Sect for coming to help. In addition, since fellow cultivator Cui can come here, there must be a guide. However, there are rules. Captain Cui, please take out the token and check it. Of course, please. Cui Hongshan handed over the token, and the cultivator took it. He took out a magic weapon that looked like a ruler from his arms. He urged his spiritual power and placed it on the token. A yellow light flashed on the ruler, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then, a thumb-sized ball flew out from the ruler. It paused for a moment, and then flew into Cui Hongshan's token. I, Mount Quanjin's imprint, have entered Captain Cui's token. When this matter is over, Captain Cui can use this imprint to return to Sky Patrol City. Sky Patrol City has nothing but gratitude. The cultivator clapped his hand and the token fell into Cui Hongshan's hand again. Captain Cui, please continue forward. According to the other disciples of Sky Patrol City, your Imperial Thunder Sect's other teams have arrived. The resting room of your Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples is arranged in the northwest area. You can go there with the disciples who welcome you. As for how to defend, how to guard, and how to fight, we'll have to wait for all the disciples to arrive before we can decide. Yes, I understand. Cui Hongshan took the token and kept it in his arms. He cupped his hands and flew down. Xiao Hua and the others followed closely behind him. Such a mysterious arrangement in such a deep tunnel, I'm afraid it's not easy to be discovered by a sword cultivator, right? As long as we guard on time, we should be able to complete the task. Facing the enemy is nonsense. Xiao Hua laughed in his heart. He believed in his own vision. Even his Buddhist consciousness could not find the underground mineral vein. How could a sword cultivator know? This time, his first team had drawn a good lot. They would definitely not encounter such a dangerous situation like last time. After flying for another 100 feet, everyone's eyes were bright. They had reached the end of the tunnel. This was a space with a radius of several hundred feet. In this space, there were dozens of disciples in Sky Patrol City's city guard uniform. They held celestial devices and other items and were on guard. Before Xiao Hua and the others landed, the disciples' divine senses locked onto Xiao Hua and the others. When they saw the faces and robes of the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples, they relaxed slightly. They also wanted to check the tokens. Xiao Hua took advantage of this time to look around. He saw that other than the tunnel where he and the others landed, there were 4 to 5 pitch-black holes above the space. It should be a tunnel that led to here from another direction. Sorry, everyone's tokens also need to be checked. After checking Chui Hongshan's captain token, another 9 city guards stepped forward and politely stretched out their hands. Sigh, it's really troublesome. Dui Ling muttered softly. Hee, I'll let this fellow from the Imperial Thunder Sect know. The city guard in front of Dui Ling laughed and said, My Quanjin Mountain is a spirit stone mineral vein. It's not only extremely important to my Sky Patrol City, it's also crucial to the entire war. No matter how careful you are, you can't be too careful. Hee, I was just saying. Dui Ling laughed and took out the token. Xiao Hua also took out the token cooperatively and handed it to the city guard. At the same time, he smiled and said, Just now, I saw Tai Ching Sect's captain. He arrived first. I wonder where they are arranged. Oh. Tai Ching Sect? The city guard checked the token and laughed, I have been on duty this entire time and have not seen any Tai Ching Sect disciples. However, a small team from the Rock Border Sect came in earlier. Oh. Xiao Hua raised his brows and said curiously, Fang Yuan is right in front of us. Could it be that Quanjin Mountain has multiple entrances? Fellow Daoist Xiao will be on duty in a few days, so I won't hide it from fellow Daoist. My Golden Spring Mountain has 8 such entrances, and each entrance has 4 to 6 tunnels that lead to the surface. Does your fellow Daoist from the Tai Ching Sect know where they came from? However, the Tai Ching Sect disciples seem to be arranged in the northwest region. You just have to go in and look for them. Yes, I understand. Xiao Hua received the token and nodded in reply. After everyone's tokens were checked, a Qi refinement disciple walked over and respectfully led the way in front, bringing them to the northwest region to rest. Walking out of the space of the entrance, Xiao Hua felt his vision suddenly become clear. The first thing he looked at was the top of his head. He saw that although there were no gloomy winter clouds above his head, nor was there any blue sky or white clouds, there was a layer of faint azure. There was a layer of fine light emitting from it, and it did not seem like a cave 10,000 feet below. Moreover, this azure sky above his head was extremely high. It seemed to be several hundred feet high, and there was no feeling of oppression. Xiao Hua moved his gaze away from the top of his head and looked in front of him. It was another huge space. This space was not too flat, and there were some ravines and hills. It was somewhat similar to the mountains commonly seen in the country of Xi. What surprised Xiao Hua the most was that above these ravines and hills, there were some green and bright colors. It was the color of Xiao Chao and Xiao Hua. It was really more lively than the spring gold mountain pine forest above his head. Looking at the space again, there were already many cultivators. Most of these cultivators were disciples of the Sky Patrol City, and most of these disciples were Qi refinement disciples. There were very few disciples above the Foundation establishment realm. Some of these disciples were in a hurry, flying in the space from a cave on one side of the space to another place. Some disciples seemed to be a little slow, or even slightly limited. As for the Foundation Establishment disciples of the Sky Patrol City, they should be the disciples on duty, leading some Chi refinement disciples and cruising at the edge of the space. My goodness, is this the Spirit Stone vein? Xiaohua didn't dare to extend his divine sense too far, and only swept it to the left. The rich and familiar Earth-type spiritual energy of heaven and earth filled the entire space. Taking a deep breath, he was able to feel the coolness of the spiritual energy in the air. It seems, this task is not as difficult as I thought. Xiaohua thought again, even if I am on duty here, I can still cultivate during normal times. In this place where the spiritual chi of heaven and earth is rich, my cultivation will definitely improve faster. This young master needs a lot of spiritual chi of heaven and earth for cultivation. I'm afraid this spiritual chi is useless. Chapter 23:20. Thinking about it, Xiaohua could not help but feel a little regretful. He looked to the side of the space and saw the cave closest to him. It must be the entrance to the Spirit Stone vein. Thinking about the piles of spirit stones inside, Xiaohua's eyes lit up. It was a pity that the Sky Patrol City disciple who led Xiaohua and the others walked in front. Otherwise, Xiaohua would have gone forward to ask about the Spirit Stone vein. The arrival of Xiaohua and the others did not attract the attention of the Sky Patrol City disciples. It seemed that the number of Path Sect disciples had increased during this period of time. Just as the Sky Patrol City's disciple was about to lead Xiaohua and the others into a large cave, a loud noise came from a cave not far away from Xiaohua. Many of the disciples who were flying into the cave stopped and gave way to the noise. Then, a group of Sky Patrol City disciples who were only at level 3 or 4 of the Chi refining realm flew out of the cave. These disciples lined up neatly in rows of 5. Under the leadership of a 10th layer Chi refining disciple, they filed out of the cave. Xiaohua paused for a moment and watched like Cui Hongshan and the others. He waited until this group of disciples had completely flown out of the cave and into another cave before flying up again. Xiaohua saw clearly that there were more than 1,000 disciples in this group. Each disciple had a bulging storage bag on their waist. Moreover, these disciples' faces were full of fatigue as if they were extremely tired. I'll let you know. These are the disciples of our Sky Patrol City who are mining here. When the Chi refinement disciple saw that the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples had stopped, he did not urge them. He waited for them to fly up again before he introduced them with a smile. Half of the disciples recruited by the Sky Patrol City have to mine in the Spirit Stone veins. Only when they have accumulated enough Spirit Stones and accumulated enough Spirit Stones can they officially become the official disciples of the Sky Patrol City. These disciples have to hand over the ores they mine to the warehouse. When the warehouse is full of Spirit Stones, the general will bring them back to the Sky Patrol City and hand them over to the city governor. General? Xiaohua was stunned. Sure enough, Cui Hongshan was also puzzled and asked in a low voice, General is Senior 2 Hong, right? Yes. The Chi refining realm disciple nodded and said, Senior 2 is a Golden Core realm senior. He has been in charge of the Spirit Stone vein in Mount Springgold for hundreds of years. The title of General is a title of honor in Sky Patrol City. My Golden Spring Mountains disciples all address Senior 2 as such. This junior is also used to it. As they spoke, Xiaohua and the others entered the cave. This cave was also huge. Just like the previous space, there were some flowers and plants. After flying for another incense stick's worth of time, the number of Sky Patrol City's disciples decreased. It was also much quieter. The Chi refinement disciple said in a low voice, This is the place where the high-ranking disciples of the Sky Patrol City rest and cultivate. It's usually quieter here. Due to the arrival of the seniors, the general has moved the disciples here to another place. The heaven and earth spirit chi here is denser than anywhere else. I hope you'll be satisfied. Many thanks for Senior Two's arrangement. Cui Hongshan replied with a smile. When a huge stone wall appeared in front of them with numerous caves on it, the Qi refinement disciple clapped his hands and took out a jade amulet. He handed it to Cui Hongshan with both hands and said, "Inside each cave are 10 quiet rooms, all of which can be used for cultivation. Captain Cui and the other seniors, please rest for a while." After a few days, when all the seniors who came as reinforcements arrive, the general will definitely receive you all. All right. Many thanks. Cui Hongshan took the jade amulet. Also, if there's nothing else, please stay in this quiet room. If you feel bored, you can walk around outside the quiet room. However, please do not fly out of the cave outside. The Qi refinement disciple smiled apologetically and reminded, "Our Sky Patrol City has set up many powerful restrictions here. Many of them are so powerful that even the general does not dare to touch them casually. If any of the seniors were to walk into the wrong place, I'm afraid the consequences would be very serious." "Hee, we understand." Cui Hongshan smiled and cupped his hands. After the Qi refinement disciple bowed, he turned around and flew away. I thought it would be an extremely dangerous mission." Zhen Minghui and Xiao Hua had the same thought. After the disciple left, Zhen Minghui chuckled and said, "So it's so carefree. It's the same as when I was patrolling the Thunder Palace in the past. The heaven and earth spirit chi here is so dense, it seems to be even better than the Thunder Palace. This mission is really too easy." I'm afraid so." Cui Hongshan injected his dermic powers into the jade amulet. The jade amulet turned into a stream and rushed into one of the caves. After breaking the restriction outside the cave, he smiled and said, "The spiritual stone veins in Mount Quanjin are buried so deep. I'm afraid that the Sky Patrol City has set up this place for thousands of years. Even if a sword cultivator were to fly over it, it would be impossible for them to know about it, not to mention that they would not even think of this place. As long as the disciples who come to Mount Quanjin are more cautious and not let the sword cultivator's eyes and ears find them, we will have nothing to worry about." Dui Chimeng nodded. "What about the dozens of disciples who escaped?" Xiao Hua reminded, "If they were captured by the sword cultivator, they might have been forced to confess or have their souls searched." This. Cui Hongshan's expression changed slightly. He frowned and said, "I'm afraid it's not good to ask. This is a shameful matter between the Utopia faction and Kunlun sect. It's not good for me to mention it. I just hope that they don't know about Mount Quanjin, or that they were killed by the sword cultivator once they saw him. Let's go." Xiao Hua was the first to enter the cave. He smiled and said, "If the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up. Senior 2 is a golden core cultivator. With him around, we don't have to worry." Inside the cave, there were indeed 10 quiet rooms. Xiao Hua and the others each found one. Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui discussed together. Dui Chimeng and Ming Mao chattered together. Xiao Hua was the first to activate the restriction of the quiet room. Without waiting to sit cross-legged, he took out the wishful rod. The scene of killing the bird cultivator really shocked him. Along the way, he wanted to take it out and take a look. Xiao Hua was a little frustrated and scratched his head. "Grow!" Xiao Hua looked at the wishful rod that was less than 2 feet long and shouted in a low voice. With a whoosh, Xiao Hua's hand moved slightly, as if his arm had stretched out. The wishful rod indeed stretched out less than half a foot long. "Ha!" Xiao Hua laughed. He reached out and touched his nose. He shouted again, "Grow!" Whoosh! The wishful rod once again grew half a foot long. "Grow, grow!" After Xiao Hua called out twice, he shut his mouth. The wishful steel rod grew again, reaching a total of 3 feet before stopping. Xiao Hua's hand also felt that it had stretched to the end, and could no longer stretch any further. In the records of ghost cultivators, the wishful rod of the 5 elements can pierce the 9 heavens and explore the 9 underworlds. How can this wishful rod only reach 3 feet? Xiao Hua said. Chapter 23-21. Then Xiao Hua secretly laughed, "Damn, this is already good. I still don't know how to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven staff. I can get such a prototype. With this thing, I will try my best to find the refining method and the materials used. As long as the opportunity is right, I will be able to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven staff sooner or later. Alas, I am afraid I will not see the great wisdom heavy sword in the future. This guy seems to have accompanied me for a long time." Xiao Hua played with the wishful heaven staff technique in the quiet room and shrunk the wishful heaven staff. Similarly, he could only shrink it to about 1 foot and could not shrink it anymore. After putting the wishful heaven staff into the space, Xiao Hua looked at the duckling. After these days of recuperation, the duckling was obviously out of danger, just like Goldie. However, her recovery was also very slow and she still had not woken up. Alas, this space is a bit strange. I don't know how many years these eggs have been here, but why haven't there been any changes? Why can't anything hatch? Xiao Hua swept his gaze over those insect eggs again. He actually had the intention to take these insect eggs into his spirit storage pouch, but then he had another thought. In any case, I have no use for these things. I want to see what exactly is stopping these insect eggs from hatching. Immediately after, Xiao Hua took out the items from the 30 sword cultivators, as well as the 3 storage pouches from the bird cultivators. The sword cultivators' storage pouches were mostly filled with sword slips, spirit stones, and unknown medicinal pills. The bird cultivators' storage pouches had even more spirit stones, as well as some sword slips and medicinal pills. However, the bird cultivators' medicinal pills were very strange. They were as big as chicken eggs and incomparably smelly. Xiao Hua sniffled and hastily put away these medicinal pills, and only then did he carefully look through the sword slips. After looking at them for a long time, Xiao Hua was disappointed again. These sword slips didn't contain any primordial spirit sword controlling techniques, and they were only ordinary sword techniques for sword cultivators. Huh. This storage bag is a bit strange. When he picked up the last storage bag, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. The storage bag's space was very large, and there was a faint sword light flowing inside. It seemed that the sword light could fly out. Moreover, in this storage bag, there was only a sword slip and a palm-sized purple-red wood. There was nothing else. That's strange. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, then raised the storage pouch and looked around. After thinking hard for a moment, he somewhat understood. This storage pouch seemed to have been taken from the sword cultivator's bosom when he killed that sword cultivator who could resist the soul-absorbing bell. I'm afraid he has some background. Xiao Hua thought and took out the sword slip. When he finished reading the contents, he was even more puzzled. Spirit-swallowing bug? Wasn't this the second spiritual insect recorded in the insect scripture? Huan country actually has it. Was this with the black silk wood? A spiritual object that can attract and find spirit-swallowing bugs? Xiao Hua clapped his hand, and the purple-red-black silk wood fell into his hand. Instantly, an extremely fragrant and sweet smell emanated from the black silk wood, and it instantly filled the entire room. That sweet fragrance entered Xiao Hua's nose and mouth, and a feeling of laziness emerged in his mind. The soul thread in the mysterious dark cloud suddenly jumped, as if it had taken some elixir to refresh its mind. It jumped violently, and a powerful fluctuation spread out from within the dark cloud. My goodness, this is... Xiao Hua was stunned at first, and then he was overjoyed. In addition to the method of integrating the spirit birds into the body, there was also the elixir formula for the bird cultivator to take. Xiaohua just looked at the method of integrating the spirit birds into the body and then focused on the elixir formula. The elixir formula of the bird cultivator was very different from the elixir formula of the Taoist sect. It did not use spiritual herbs to refine the elixir, but the inner core of spirit beasts and the flesh of spirit beasts. It was somewhat similar to the elixir formula of the legendary Feng He Si. No wonder it smells a little. Xiaohua frowned and finished reading the elixir formula. He thought to himself, the inner core of the spirit beasts is used as the main ingredient, and the flesh and scales are used as supplements. It should be another refining method. Although it looks very bloody, it is also wonderful. I have not seen the elixir formula of the Feng He Si. I'm afraid it is a kind of moderate method, with inner core and spiritual herbs. However, the inner core of the beast cultivator can not only improve the cultivation, but also strengthen the body according to their secret method. It is also useful. It's this stench. I have to think about how to get rid of it. Otherwise, how can I take it? Xiaohua thought and carefully read the elixir formula several times. He remembered it in his heart and put it into the space. The spiritual stone vein. Xiaohua counted his gains and looked around the quiet room. He thought to himself, it has been so long since I got the refining method of the talisman from Tianmen Mountain. My primordial spirit has already understood the most basic refining method. Unfortunately, I have not had the chance to find the jade essence. Now that I am in the spiritual stone vein, should be able to find some to practice. This was what Xiaohua wanted the most when he came to the spiritual stone vein in Jinquan Mountain. However, since the jade essence was such a precious thing, Xiaohua would not be able to get it easily. Moreover, the spiritual stone vein in Jinquan Mountain was extremely precious to the Sky Patrol City. Although the disciples of the Taoist sect came to help, they were probably patrolling. It was almost impossible for them to go deep into the jade stone vein. Looks like I have to think of something. Xiaohua scratched his chin and thought to himself. Just as he swallowed a few cyan spirit pills and was about to activate his cultivation method to cultivate, he suddenly jumped up again. His face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression as he muttered, you see, with so many things, it's really easy for people to overlook. That's what I said. How can this beast cultivation method be useless? Isn't this thing a copy of the puppet technique? Of course, after Xiaohua obtained the upper part of the puppet technique from Mo Qingyuan, he had already comprehended it thoroughly. He already knew the basic puppet repair technique and even knew the material of the puppet. However, these were all the basics. Relying on these alone was far from enough to refine a puppet, let alone a high-level puppet, or even a puppet with sentience. When Xiaohua saw the bird cultivator's cultivation method, he suddenly realized something. Wasn't this kind of cultivation method that fused spirit birds with the body essentially the refining method of sentient puppets? Was this the puppet technique that used the body as the puppet and the spiritual beast as the primordial spirit? Moreover, Xiaohua already knew the weapon refining technique. Using the 5 elements weapon refining technique to refine a puppet, and then using the beast cultivation secret technique. Would he be able to refine a sentient puppet soon? Comprehending by analogy, my old friend is not deceiving me. Xiaohua was more aware of the importance of having a wide range of knowledge than now. Mo Qingyuan, this bastard, actually used the lower part of the puppet technique as bait to make this young master go find him. Isn't he at the extreme north of the Dawn Rain continent with the Huan country? His so-called puppet sect is probably just some cultivation method and secret technique that he obtained from the beast cultivation method, and then used it to suit the Dao sect's cultivators. This young master has also found the trick now, so who would pay attention to him? Xiaohua thought to himself. If this place was the weapon refining technique, or if Xiaohua had the materials to refine a puppet, he would definitely ignite the earth fire and other materials without hesitation to practice the inspiration he had just now. Unfortunately, this was a quiet room, and the materials to refine a puppet were also difficult to find. Xiaohua could only understand all the details and forcefully suppress his excitement. Only then did he sit down cross-legged, consume the azure spirit pill, and use the immortal body bestowment technique. He did his best to absorb the rich earth spirit qi of heaven and earth, and even refined the earth crystal Yao milk in his meridians. Gradually, he entered the ethereal realm. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed, and no one came to disturb Xiaohua's cultivation. Naturally, Xiaohua was also happy to be free. However, no one disturbed Xiaohua, but that didn't mean that there was nothing. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, the disciples of Jinshan Quanshan came to look for the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. They said that all the Dao Sect's disciples who came to support had arrived, and Tu Hong invited the representatives of the various sects to meet them. Because there were too many disciples who came to support this time, no matter how many small teams came or how many people came, each sect only invited 3 disciples to be their representatives. Only Cui Hongshan's first small team from the Imperial Thunder Sect came to Jinshan Quanshan, so they didn't have to worry about which small team's disciples or leaders to go. They only needed to send 3 people. Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui were naturally the 2 candidates, and according to Zhen Minghui's thoughts, the 3rd must be Xiaohua. Hearing Zhen Minghui's suggestion, Cui Hongshan immediately rejected it. Chapter 23-22. No one understood Xiaohua better than Cui Hongshan. Xiaohua was the kind of person who was too lazy to entertain others. He would rather hide at the side and cultivate than to make friends with other cultivators. Since Cui Hongshan objected, Zhen Minghui did not say anything more. Other than Xiaohua, the most suitable candidate was Dui Qimeng. Firstly, she was a female cultivator. Secondly, she was a disciple of Lightning Palace. She would follow Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui and would be the representative of Lightning Palace in the first team. Thus, Cui Hongshan and the rest did not inform Xiaohua and followed the disciple of Golden Spring Mountain to Tu Hong's reception area. Tu Hong was a Jindan stage cultivator, and he was also one of the warlords of the Golden Spring Mountain. Even though it wasn't as majestic as a sect's guest hall, it was still far from what an ordinary cultivator's guest hall could compare with. This was an oval-shaped space that was a few hundred feet in size. There were thick yellow pillars that even a few cultivators would not be able to hug all of them. The pillars were engraved with complicated runes that were connected to the runes on the ground and ceiling of the space. There was a faint fluctuation of magic power. However, if one used their divine sense to scan it, they would not be able to find any trace of it. The pillars were extremely tall, at least 100 feet. The top of the pillars was similarly blue in color, like the clear blue sky. The white clouds in the blue sky were connected to each other. This was the complicated runes. In the gaps of the runes, there were hundreds and thousands of bright flower stones embedded in them, illuminating the entire space. It was no different from the clear sky. Below the walls of the space and on the ground, there were huge spiritual grasses or extremely tall spiritual trees planted from time to time. The fragrance of the spiritual grasses and the branches and leaves of the spiritual trees swayed in the wind. At first glance, no one would think that the space was underground. Cui Hongshan was also from a cultivator family and was quite knowledgeable. Following the disciple of Golden Spring Mountain into the reception area, he did not use his divine sense to scan the place. Instead, he used his eyes to think about the ravines and plants outside. He knew that General Tu Hong, who he had only heard of and had never met before, was a senior with good taste, who knew how to enjoy life, and even had some elegance. Hongshan, this reception area is so big. It should be able to accommodate all the disciples, right? Why is there a need to send only 3 people each? Dui Qimeng's eyes shifted as she transmitted a message in a low voice. Cui Hongshan had long noticed that some disciples from other sects had already arrived. They were standing right in front of the hall, and in front of them was a jade table that was half the height of a person. On top of the table was a square vessel with more than a dozen token arrows inserted into it. Behind the table was a jade chair. Chui Hongshan narrowed his eyes and transmitted his voice, Senior Tu Hong is a gold core cultivator, and we are merely juniors. There are even chi refining disciples among the disciples who came as reinforcements. How can he meet us one by one? This method of meeting the leaders of the various sects is precisely Senior's choice. Following which, he said with admiration, this Chui really wants to see what this general of Quanjin Mountain's disciple looks like. If this Chui has such cultivation and authority one day, I will certainly build my cave residence in such an elegant manner. Yes, Chui Lang can definitely do it. Dui Chimeng had a smile on her face, and her eyes were filled with tenderness. She quietly extended her hand and held Chui Hongshan's hand. Dui Chimeng didn't particularly like Chui Hongshan in the past. She even felt that the myriad Thunder Valley of Seismic Thunder Palace wasn't worthy of her. In particular, the myriad Thunder Valley had always been weak, which made her master somewhat hesitant. She was afraid that Dui Chimeng would suffer some grievances after marrying into the myriad Thunder Valley. She had also mentioned this in front of Dui Chimeng. Dui Chimeng had also vaguely revealed this matter to Chui Hongshan during their interactions. It could be considered as a warning in advance, such as Xiang Yang's cowardice, Xiao Hua's jokes, and so on. She had even pointed out that this might be the reason why the two of them couldn't dual cultivate in the future. Therefore, this was also the reason why Chui Hongshan had some resentment towards Xiao Hua. However, Chui Hongshan's performance was different from Xiang Yang and Xiao Hua's. He had a wide range of connections in Thunderclap Palace. While others mocked Myriad Thunder Valley, he endured the humiliation and became friends with them. In addition, his own aptitude was not bad. Gradually, he had some reputation in the Seismic Thunder Palace. Dui Chimeng and her master naturally also heard of him. Dui Chimeng also gradually agreed to Chui Hongshan's dual cultivation in her heart. She felt that Chui Hongshan could revitalize the Myriad Thunder Valley. Xiang Yang and Xiao Hua's weakness was also a good opportunity for Chui Hongshan to rise and even control the Myriad Thunder Valley. When Xiang Yang returned to the mountain, Xiang Zhili suddenly became a new force to be reckoned with, and the Myriad Thunder Valley became even more dazzling. Dui Chimeng's master's eyes were naturally very sharp. She knew that the Myriad Thunder Valley would definitely obtain the favor of Thunder Meng Daoist in the future by relying on Xiang Zhili. This was the best time for her to become friends with the Myriad Thunder Valley. In addition, the Myriad Thunder Valley had promised Dui Chimeng a mysterious betrothal gift that could allow Dui Chimeng to attain a gold core. She naturally agreed to Dui Chimeng marrying the Myriad Thunder Valley. Unfortunately, things didn't go according to the person. At this crucial moment, a great sword battle appeared. It completely messed up the dual cultivation ceremony that the two had planned long ago. Just as Dui Chimeng's heart was in a mess, she unexpectedly discovered that Chui Hongshan, who she thought highly of before, had unexpectedly exceeded her expectations. He had actually placed her in the same small team as him, and moreover, it was the first small team of the Imperial Thunder sect. Her heart, which was already in love with him, became even sweeter than honey. She knew that she had entrusted herself to a great husband, who far exceeded her expectations. Naturally, the sudden changes in the situation and the rise of strange peaks exceeded her expectations. It was the most inconceivable thing she had ever encountered since she became sensible. The joke that the Myriad Thunder Valley was ridiculed by others was actually not a joke, but a true legend. An early-stage foundation establishment cultivator whose cultivation was comparable to a gold core was precisely capable of turning the entire Seismic Thunder Palace into a joke. With a fierce person like Xiao Hua in the Myriad Thunder Valley, would they still be bullied by the other disciples of the Seismic Thunder Palace? If he didn't bully other disciples, they would be secretly happy. Of course, Dui Chimeng naturally also considered for her sweetheart. With Xiao Hua, how would Chui Hongshan stand out in the Myriad Thunder Valley? However, if Xiao Hua's cultivation was at the middle stage of foundation establishment, Dui Qimeng would still consider it. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's cultivation was comparable to the late stage of foundation establishment, which was close to the early stage of gold core. This was a helpless cultivation. He was simply not on the same level as Cui Hongshan. Dui Qimeng only pondered for a moment before giving up. The two of them simply weren't on the same path. What puzzled Dui Qimeng the most was that with Xiao Hua's cultivation, why was he so secretive? He didn't even know about helplessness. Of course, Cui Hongshan was still dazzling in the myriad Thunder Valley even though Xiao Hua had concealed it. What made Dui Qimeng feel the most at ease was Xiao Hua's attitude towards Cui Hongshan. She knew very well that the filth between the two of them was precisely because of Xiao Hua's narrow-mindedness. Dui Qimeng was a woman, and she was very clear. Xiao Hua treated Cui Hongshan as a fellow disciple. Otherwise, not to mention rescuing them from the hands of the sword cultivators, even if he killed them all, who would know? Xiao Hua gave them a lot of pills and flying swords without the slightest bit of stinginess. Chapter 23-23. What was the reason for a narrow-minded person like Xiao Hua to not be stingy? Dui Qimeng also understood that Xiao Hua definitely had more things in his hands. That was the storage pouches of dozens of sword cultivators. The things inside were unimaginable. Who did this belong to? Xiao Hua couldn't finish using it. If he couldn't use it, then it must belong to Myriad Thunder Valley. How many people were there in Myriad Thunder Valley? How much could Dui Qimeng and Cui Hongshan get? It went without saying. What Dui Qimeng admired the most was that Cui Hongshan's attitude towards Xiao Hua was still magnanimous and neither haughty nor humble. Magnanimous because he tolerated Xiao Hua's little temper, as if Xiao Hua didn't reveal his cultivation. Neither haughty nor humble because Cui Hongshan still had the face of a senior brother. He didn't call himself junior brother just because Xiao Hua's cultivation was much higher than his. Wasn't this Cui Hongshan, who didn't feel joy from external gains and was extremely refined and gentlemanly, the perfect partner in Dui Qimeng's heart? Feeling Dui Qimeng's tenderness, Cui Hongshan's heart felt sweet. It seemed that all the grievances he had suffered and everything he had done before had been repaid. He unconsciously clenched his fist. This clench was far beyond any other action. It was the charm of two hearts touching. Cui Captain Cui, these are spirit stones. Zhen Minghui naturally turned a blind eye to the two's intimacy. However, when he walked past a stone pillar and accidentally touched it with his hand, he couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. What? Spirit stones? Senior brother Minghui, you said, this entire stone pillar is made of spirit stones? Hearing this, Cui Hongshan and Dui Qimeng were greatly shocked. The two let go of their hands and raised their heads at the same time, looking at that extremely tall and thick stone pillar with an inconceivable gaze. It wasn't that Cui Hongshan and Dui Qimeng had never seen spirit stones before. It wasn't that they hadn't thought of thousands of spirit stones appearing in this spirit stone mine. However, such a thick crystal pillar of spirit stones was erected here as a pillar. This kind of extravagance was something they had never dreamt of even in their dreams. This is a supreme-grade spirit stone? Dui Qimeng moved her eyes over and scanned it with her divine sense. However, that divine sense was blocked by the runes outside of the crystal pillar. Impossible. Cui Hongshan shook his head. This should be the low-grade spirit stones left behind after Golden Spring Mountain excavated the spirit stone vein. Hee, I'll let Captain Cui know. This is a real top-grade spirit stone. The Quanjin Mountain Qi refinement disciple who had been leading the way and had not spoken a single word could not help but correct Cui Hongshan's self-righteousness. It's not just here, there are more in other places of my Quanjin Mountain. Top-grade spirit stones. How many are there in this hall? Cui Hongshan's face flashed with extreme embarrassment, which was immediately covered up by shock. His eyes swept across the hall. There were probably dozens or even hundreds of such large stone pillars in the hall. If they were all top-grade spirit stones, then how many would there be? It was simply enough to buy the entire Chui family, right? I'll let Captain Chui know. I've counted them before, and it's exactly 81. That aura-refining disciple couldn't help but show off. Moreover, I've heard the general occasionally mention that this is precisely the crystal pillar of some great formation. I understand now. Chui Hongshan nodded slightly, and his face returned to normal. He smiled and said, "The Sky Patrol City is indeed generous. They've really put in a lot of effort for this spirit stone vein." Seeing Chui Hongshan's calm expression, that aura-refining disciple was actually a little disappointed. Thinking of the first time he saw so many top-grade spirit stones, he couldn't calm down even after dozens of days. The aura-refining disciple led Chui Hongshan and the other two to the table. When they were about a dozen feet away from the table, the aura-refining disciple stopped. He bowed and said, "Captain Chui, these are the seats for your esteemed group's disciples. Please wait here for a moment, our general will be here soon." Chui Hongshan looked to his left and right. In front of him were disciples dressed in Taoist robes from Splendid Sect and Xiuyan Sect. On the left and right were disciples from Lian country and Meng country. Knowing that this seat was arranged by Golden Spring Mountain, he cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, fellow cultivator." After that aura-refining disciple left, Chui Hongshan and the others stood quietly with their eyes slightly closed, waiting for Tu Hong's arrival. After a few minutes, there was another series of footsteps. Chui Hongshan and the others turned their heads slightly and saw that the disciples of Utopia faction and Tai Ching sect were also led in by Golden Spring Mountain's disciples. Naturally, both He Fong Yuan and Yang Fangcheng were shocked by this huge top-grade spirit stone crystal pillar. Looking at their astonishment and embarrassment, Chui Hongshan smiled in his heart. So it's not only me, but also the disciples of these big sects, are also making a fool of themselves. When He Fong Yuan stopped and glanced at the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, he saw that Xiao Hua wasn't among them. His face showed a trace of relief. Then he cupped his hands slightly towards Chui Hongshan and transmitted his voice, "Captain Chui, why didn't junior brother Xiao come?" Chui Hongshan replied with a smile, "Xiao Hua is refining his cultivation method. He didn't have time to come." "Captain what's the matter?" It's nothing." He Fong Yuan thought for a while and said, "Junior brother Xiao killed the bird cultivator to avenge my Tai Ching sect's disciples. Earlier, junior brother Xiao's primeval essence was exhausted and he was recovering. I didn't dare to disturb him. I originally wanted to see him here and thank him in person." I can bring these words back. Chui Hongshan was a little puzzled. "Moreover, I'm afraid tomorrow is our turn. There will be a time when we meet. Captain, he can also mention this to Xiao Hua." "That, He Fong Yuan looked around and saw Yang Fangcheng's gaze. He nodded slightly at him and said to Chui Hongshan, "Actually, I have a presumptuous request. I hope you can fulfill it." "Oh? What is it?" "I hope Captain he can explain it clearly." Chui Hongshan really didn't understand and secretly wondered if it had anything to do with Xiao Hua. Sure enough, He Fong Yuan hesitated slightly before smiling apologetically. "My Tai Ching sect's disciples were saved by Imperial Thunder sect's disciples. I have already recorded this in my captain token. Regardless of whether I live or die, my Tai Ching sect will definitely repay this favor to Imperial Thunder sect. Captain Chui, your first team's contribution will not be small." Chui Hongshan heard this and was overjoyed, nodding, "This matter was all done by Xiao Hua. Captain Chui, no need to be modest." He Fong Yuan waved his hand. "Fellow Daoist Zhao's contributions are truly great. But fellow Daoist Chui and the others didn't fear the sword cultivator and risked their lives to save him. I am truly impressed." Many thanks, Captain He. Shui Hongshan knew there would be a but after this, so he smiled and nodded. However, that disciple of my Tai Ching sect. He Fang Yuan said with difficulty, since he was already killed by the bird cultivator, that moment of cowardice earlier, can't be his only performance. Moreover, his performance since the beginning of the battle was not bad. At that time, it was just a moment of confusion. The ancients often say that a single slip will cause everlasting sorrow. Oh, Shui Hongshan suddenly realized and hurriedly stopped He Fang Yuan's words. He smiled and said, Captain He, don't say too much. The record in my captain token is even simpler. It only states that I met fellow Daoist Tai Ching sect and helped him. Nothing else is written. He Fang Yuan heard this and was overjoyed. He bowed and said, Thank you, Captain Shui. Heh, you're welcome, you're welcome. Shui Hongshan also cupped his hands from afar. In addition, fellow Daoist Yang Fangcheng of the Utopia faction and fellow Daoist Ku Xingxi of the Kunlun sect also had the same idea. This matter is a disgrace to all the sections. If we explain it at this time, it will definitely affect the morale of the disciples of all the sects, He Fang Yuan said again, so, we discussed and only recorded the disciples involved in this matter in the captain token. I hope that Captain Shui will not inform Sky Patrol City of this matter when you are at Quan Jin Mountain. When you return to Sky Patrol City, you can report it to Yanxi Prefecture's meeting hall. After all, this is our Dao sect's own matter. There is no need to let Sky Patrol City know so clearly. This is what Xiao Hua wants. Shui Hongshan narrowed his eyes and muttered in his heart. He knew that Xiao Hua did not want to attract attention. However, Shui Hongshan frowned and said with a bitter expression, I can naturally cover up the matter regarding the Tai Ching sect's disciples, but the disciples of the other sects. Even if I agree to it, my junior brother won't agree to it. Captain He also knows that he abhors evil, I'm afraid it will not be easy to deal with him. I'll have to rely on Captain Shui to deal with him. He Fang Yuan's heart relaxed when he heard this. Xiao Hua's cultivation was high. He was a little anxious and felt that he did not dare to say too much. Facing Shui Hongshan, He Fang Yuan could say it. We are all fellow Taoists who bathed in blood together in the sword battle. Not to mention others, fellow Taoists Yang Fangcheng and Ku Xingxi have long had the intention to befriend fellow Taoist Shui. Although we can't be sworn brothers with the secular world, we can share blessings and misfortunes together. Good. Shui Hongshan nodded, just as Captain He said, we are fellow Taoists who have gone through life and death together. Tai Ching sect's Captain He's matter is my matter, and fellow Taoists Yang and Ku Xingxi's matter is also my matter. Captain He, please rest assured, I will agree to this matter. Great. He Fang Yuan was very happy and cupped his fists at Shui Hongshan again. Then, he transmitted his voice to Yang Fangcheng and the others. Not long after, Yang Fangcheng, Ku Xingxi, and even the captains of other sects who came first also thanked Shui Hongshan. Deserting in the face of danger was indeed despised by all cultivators in the sword battle. Especially in Jin Quan Mountain, in front of Patrol Heaven City, and in front of the other sects of the Three Kingdoms, it was definitely a taboo for Tai Ching sect and the other sections. Shui Hongshan not mentioning this matter was naturally giving face to the other sections. He Fang Yuan and the others had to accept this favor, and this favor was also extremely huge. Then, Shui Hongshan transmitted his voice to Zhen Minghui and Dui Qimeng. Both of them nodded. Dui Qimeng looked at her lover and felt that he was even more lofty. Cough cough, a low cough came from behind the table in front of everyone. On the stone wall behind the table, a faint yellow light flashed, and a short and even somewhat stooped old man walked out of the light. Seeing that the cultivator's white hair and the hardships on his face, Shui Hongshan was secretly disappointed. This was not the image of General Tu Hongtu in his heart. To be continued. Chapter 23-24 Fellow Taoists, my family's general has some matters to attend to and will be delayed for a moment. This old man came first to apologize to all of you fellow Taoists. The old man walked to the side of the table, but didn't sit down on the jade chair. Instead, he slowly walked to the side of the table and cupped his hands across his chest as he spoke. Sure enough, this isn't Tu Hong. Cui Hongshen was overjoyed. He immediately probed the old man's cultivation. Sure enough, he was only at the late Foundation establishment realm. We wouldn't dare. Senior 2 is busy, so we will wait here. For him to send Senior here, it really makes us juniors panic. A disciple of the Splendid Flower sect respectfully said. This old man is Lan Xian. I am the general's assistant. The old man smiled. Fellow Taoists have come to help and are honored guests of my Golden Springs Mountain. How could this old man not come to receive you? However, because this is a war, wine is not allowed. Otherwise, with the general's hospitable personality, he would have already prepared a feast to welcome you. Old Master Lan, what are you saying behind my back? A hearty voice sounded out. From the brilliance that Lan Xian had just appeared, a tall middle-aged cultivator walked out. Cui Hongshen's eyes brightened. This cultivator had a square face. His face was fair and clean, with silkworm eyebrows and phoenix eyes. His nose was like a hanging gall bladder, and he had a long beard. His eyes were filled with righteousness. This is a true general. Cui Hongshen secretly cheered in his heart. Not only does he have a dignified appearance, but he is also kind and approachable. He only delayed us for a moment and yet this subordinate has to come here and apologize. He is truly admirable. Looking at Tu Hong's body, he wasn't wearing an ordinary Taoist robe, but a soft armor that protected his vest. The valiant aura of this armor accentuated his scholarly elegance, making him stand out from the masses. General, how could this old man dare to speak ill of the general? I was only casually chatting with fellow Taoists. As Lan Xian spoke, she turned to the cultivators and nodded with a smile. But at this time, Lan Xian's eyes swept over the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect and saw the smiling Dui Chimeng. Lan Xian's eyebrows shot up, her eyes flashing with amazement. But then, she turned to look at Tu Hong. As Tu Hong saw Lan Xian's gaze, he was also startled. Following her gaze, he naturally saw Dui Chimeng. Tu Hong's pupils suddenly widened, then returned to normal. Even the expression on his face changed slightly. Old Master Lan, have you seen the fellow Taoists from the various sects who came to reinforce us? Tu Hong was still smiling as he asked. His gaze left Dui Chimeng and gently swept across the disciples of the other sects. Alright, I'll let the general know that I haven't had the chance to get to know each and every one of you. Lan Xian also regained her composure. She bowed and said, this old woman didn't think that the High General would arrive so quickly. All of you are my Jin Quan Mountain's guests, they risked their lives to come here, how can this old man treat them badly? There's no need to mention other trivial matters. As Tu Hong spoke, he cupped his hands across his chest and said, this old man is Tu Hong, the guard of my Sky Patrol city at Jin Quan Mountain. Fellow Taoists have come to my Jin Quan Mountain for many days, but this old man has not seen any of you, so I feel very uneasy. I ask that fellow Taoists be magnanimous and forgive me. We greet Senior 2. The cultivators didn't dare to be negligent. They all bowed in respect. Do you think this old man is old? Tu Hong stretched out his hand and stroked his 5 strands of beard. He smiled and said, it looks like this old man will have to call himself Tu. Senior 2 is truly approachable. A captain of the Black Sky sect smiled and said, your appearance is similar to this junior's senior apprentice brother. If Senior wasn't a golden core cultivator, then this junior would have called you senior apprentice brother. Haha. Lan Xian also smiled and said, the High General has eaten the youth-preserving herb, so your appearance will never change. In addition, your hot-bloodedness has ensured the safety of my Jin Quan mountain. That is something this old man cannot do. That's enough. Tu Hong waved his hand and sat down on a jade chair. He smiled and said, the greetings are over. Fellow Taoists, please tell me about the situation from Sky Patrol City. This way, this too can have a clear idea of what happened and see if there is any way to reveal our whereabouts. Yes. Lan Xian replied from the side. She turned to the cultivators and said, fellow Taoists, please follow the order of the Lian Nation, Meng Nation, and Shi Nation. Follow the order from the beginning to the end. Thus, the disciples of the various sects followed Lan Xian's instructions. One by one, they began to recount what happened after they left Sky Patrol City's transmission array. As for Tu Hong, he sat upright on his jade chair, his expression solemn. He no longer had the playful smile from before. His eyes shined as he listened, and from time to time, he would interject and ask a few questions. It's a bit troublesome. Shui Hongshan heard the disciples of the various sects say that they had encountered different sword cultivators. They had fought life and death battles, and there had been some casualties. Moreover, the cultivation of these sword cultivators wasn't too high. Shui Hongshan suddenly realized that they had encountered dozens of swordsmen. That was definitely not something that the 10 disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect could deal with. If this matter were to spread out, Xiaohua would definitely become famous in one fell swoop. But, that bastard concealed his cultivation, wasn't it because he didn't want others to know? Last time at Chicken Crow Mountain, he also clearly said not to mention his cultivation. Shui Hongshan said with a faint feeling of jealousy. However, after he heard He Fang Yuan and Yang Fangcheng's words, he had a plan in his heart. What these two people said was the same as what they had discussed before. They only said that they had encountered a beast cultivator at the end, and at the critical moment of being besieged, the Imperial Thunder sect disciples had come to help. They didn't mention any disciples that had escaped. Since others had concealed it, he could certainly conceal it. When Shui Hongshan reported, he clearly stated the route he had taken, as well as the sword cultivators and beast cultivators he had encountered. However, the cultivation and number of sword cultivators had shrunk. Tu Hong also nodded as he listened. After Shui Hongshan finished, he said, in a great battle of the sword path, our Dao sect's cultivators should work together to resist the enemy. This time, Imperial Thunder sect came to help our Jin Quan Mountain Spirit Stone Mine. They had done well in this matter. When the other sect's disciples were in danger, they stepped forward despite the difficulties and risked their lives. They should be rewarded. Then, he looked at the others and said, I would like to report this to Sky Patrol City and award Jin Quan Mountain's first great merit to Imperial Thunder sect's first team. Does anyone have any objections? My Tai Ching sect supports it. He Fang Yuan was the first to raise his hand without hesitation. Yang Fangcheng, Ku Xingxi and the rest also agreed. The other cultivators looked at each other helplessly. It was very obvious that although there were more than a dozen disciples behind the Imperial Thunder sect who hadn't reported, from the previous reports, it seemed that apart from the first team of the Imperial Thunder sect who acted to save others, most of the other teams didn't care about their own safety and escaped if they could. Even if someone acted, it was only to save one team. How could they save 4 or 5 teams at once? We have no objections. The other disciples naturally knew that Tu Hong was trying to motivate them and raise their morale. They had no objections to Imperial Thunder sect's reward, so they raised their hands and agreed with a bitter expression. Chapter 23-25. Captain Shui, bring out your token. Lan Xian said with a smile. Yes. Shui Hongshan's heart was filled with excitement. This merit came too easily. His luck, this opportunity was truly indescribable. After Tu Hong wrote something on Cui Hongshan's token, he looked at it and smiled. I have always been clear about rewards and punishments. For the Imperial Thunder sect to do such a good deed, I must definitely reward them. Afterwards, I will report this matter to Sky Patrol City and ask them to inform the meeting hall to reward the Imperial Thunder sect's first squad. Cui Hongshan received the token and bowed. This junior thanks Senior Tu for the reward. This junior will engrave this matter in my heart and carefully explain Senior's words to this subordinate. I will strive to achieve more merits in the sword war. Good. Tu Hong clapped his hands. Fellow Daoist Chui's words are exactly what I was thinking. The sword war has just begun and there will be many opportunities for you to achieve merits. Even in my Golden Spring Mountain, there will still be opportunities to do so in the future. I want to see which fellow Daoist is worthy of my reward. Furthermore, as fellow Daoists can see, my Golden Spring Mountain may not have much, but we have a lot of spirit stones and other items. If any fellow Daoist can contribute to my Golden Spring Mountain, this too will definitely not treat him unfairly. Yes, we understand. Everyone's eyes brightened as they heard that there would be spirit stones as rewards. They bowed and said. After waiting for the dozens of sects to finish explaining the situation, Tu Hong smiled and said, Fellow Daoists, you have worked hard. Under the arrangement and leadership of all of you, although there are close to 3,000 disciples who came to my Golden Spring Mountain, according to what I know, they did not arouse the suspicion of the sword cultivators. This is indeed worthy of celebration. In fact, this is a great merit. I will definitely report this matter to Sky Patrol City. Yes, thank you Senior Tu. The cultivators beamed with joy. As for the rest of the fellow Daoists, I will leave the arrangements to fellow Daoist Lan. I still have some official business to attend to, so forgive me for not accompanying you. Tu Hong stood up and cupped his hands before turning to leave. As he left, his eyes couldn't help but sweep over the Imperial Thunder sect's Dui Chimeng. Farewell, Senior Tu. Everyone bowed. Dui Chimeng was also very grateful for Tu Hong's reward to the Imperial Thunder sect and smiled respectfully. After Tu Hong left, Lan Xian took out a jade slip from her bosom. She smiled and said, Fellow Daoists, here are all Foundation establishment cultivators. You are far stronger than the disciples of my Golden Springs Mountain. My Golden Springs Mountain will definitely provide you with a strong support. For the past 10 days, the Commander-in-Chief has been racking his brains to make arrangements to properly set up the defense of my Golden Spring Mountain. Of course, as fellow Daoists can see, my Golden Spring Mountain's defensive array is perfect. Even if sword cultivators were to fly over it, they wouldn't be able to sense it. At the same time, this old man will reveal one more thing. Even if 10 illusory sword cultivators attack at the same time, my Golden Spring Mountain's defensive array will definitely not be broken. Furthermore, these 10 illusory swordsmen may not be able to escape unscathed. As these words came out, all of the cultivators present smiled. Even if Lan Xian's words were a bit exaggerated, the truth was that she could resist at least 5 of them. 5 sword cultivators that were equivalent to Golden Core stage cultivators. Just how sturdy was this Golden Spring Mountain's array? Just how stable would they be inside the array? Sending so many disciples out, isn't this a bit too much for the assembly hall? Are the other spirit stone veins the same? Many ideas were born in the minds of the disciples present. Of course, this array formation still needs someone to preside over it. As if Lan Xian knew what everyone was thinking, she smiled and said, Fellow Daoists, you will be the main force behind this array formation in the future. However, I ask that fellow Daoists rest assured, there is no need to consume any magic power. As long as you understand the law formula, you will be able to channel the heaven and earth spiritual energy from the spirit stones into the array formation. My Golden Spring Mountain may lack many things, but there is one thing that I lack the most, and one thing that I do not lack the least. What I do not lack the least is spirit stones, and what I lack the most is disciples with the same cultivation as you fellow Daoists. Then, Lan Xian carefully explained the matters of the patrol. She divided the days and areas that each squad would patrol, and finally gave out the jade slip for the defensive array formation. However, when she passed the jade slip to Cui Hongshan, there was a slight hesitation. It was just that Cui Hongshan and the others didn't notice this. Everyone took their respective jade slips and bowed to bid their farewells to Lan Xian. Lan Xian quietly stood there, watching everyone leave. Her eyes didn't hesitate for a moment as she stared straight at Dui Qimeng's back. He waited until Dui Qimeng held Cui Hongshan's hand and walked out of the hall. Then, he sighed, turned around, and walked into the stone wall that had appeared. As the stone wall flashed with a brilliant light, his figure disappeared from sight. He didn't even care that there were still many Dao sect disciples that were slowly walking away. The place that Lan Xian appeared in was like a palace. Besides the gorgeous carvings and exquisite decorations, there were only a dozen or so handsome servants standing around. Seeing Lan Xian walk in, the servants immediately bowed in greeting. He glanced at Lan Xian, tilted his head back, and drank all the strong wine in the bowl. And on top of this table, there was a blue porcelain jug. Gold Spring Mountain Tu Hong, a Golden Core Realm cultivator's secret hideout, was actually a military tent. Lan Xian walked in front of the table and picked up the blue porcelain jug. She respectfully poured wine into the bowl that Tu Hong had placed down, and then filled another bowl to the brim. She picked up the wine bowl with both hands and raised it above her head. She respectfully said, "Lan Xian offers a toast to the general." "Good." Tu Hong stretched out his hand, placing his index and middle fingers on the inside of the wine bowl and his thumb on the outside. He gently lifted the wine bowl and brought it forward until it touched Lan Xian's bowl. He said, "Come, cheers." Gulp. 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 As Tu Hong gulped down the wine, the strong liquor flowed down his long beard and actually soaked his armor. If Cui Hongshan was here, he would definitely open his eyes wide. He couldn't believe that the refined Tu Hong actually had such a bold and unrestrained side to him. That's great. Lan Xian also drank in a single breath. Her clothes were soaked through. She sighed, "This is still a burning knife. Spicy and satisfying, the taste doesn't change at all. It's far better than any spirit wine. Since you haven't drunk in a long time, let's have 2 more cups." With a loud crash, Tu Hong slammed the wine bowl on the table and reached out to pick up the wine jug. Lan Xian didn't dare to be negligent. She quickly grabbed the wine jug and apologetically smiled, "This old man will." As she spoke, she poured out 2 more bowls of wine and accompanied Tu Hong to drink 2 more cups. Suddenly, a dark red color rose up from Lan Xian's face. "Old brother Lan. Your capacity for alcohol, hee, even though you've reached foundation establishment, you still haven't changed." Tu Hong smiled. He reached out for the wine jug and poured himself a bowl, not giving one to Lan Xian. "This old man can't compare to the general." Lan Xian smiled and said, "I don't need to use true essence to refine this strong wine. 2 bowls are enough." Is there any difference between Yu Meng and the past, or perhaps, is there any difference between us? Lan Xian didn't know if she had seen clearly just now, but she looked again and again. She smiled and said, "Lord General, this old woman saw that Yu Meng's eyes were dull, without any emotion. She is somewhat similar to a puppet. But she is indeed Yu Meng. She is similar to the Million Meng Mountain soul cultivators. The promise is also similar." "Ha, that's right." Tu Hong nodded. He looked at Yu Meng and smiled. "When I first saw Yu Meng open her eyes from the crystal coffin, the ecstasy in my heart was incomparable. At that time, I only thought that even if I had to give the entire Gold Spring Mountain to the soul cultivators, it would still be worth it. But When I saw Yu Meng's current appearance, I couldn't help but feel disappointed. It's just that they clearly said that the dead cannot be resurrected. Although the soul cultivator's secret techniques are linked to the soul, they cannot create something out of nothing. They can only use a soul artifact to control a person's body. To put it bluntly, Yu Meng is not the Yu Meng of the past. She is now nothing more than an empty shell. She is only relying on this soul artifact to support herself. As he spoke, Tu Hong shook the bell and said, "Yu Meng, help your husband bring over some strong wine." "Yes, this concubine understands." Yu Meng bowed and slowly walked towards another tent. Her face was as cold as ever, without the least bit of emotion. Isn't this similar to the magic of some of the cultivation sects in the country of Shi? Lan Xian looked at Yu Meng's graceful back and whispered, "The Million Meng Mountain soul cultivators wouldn't deceive us, right?" "No, they wouldn't." Tu Hong shook his head. "What I'm looking for is not an ordinary soul cultivator, but someone with some background. Someone who has a deep understanding of my Dawn Rain continent, is far from those uncivilized soul cultivators. Moreover, they have clearly stated that those aristocratic families in the country of Shi are refining Yu Meng's body into a puppet. Yu Meng will listen to whoever takes the soul artifact. But at this time, Yu Meng is relying on her soul to disperse the mark in her body. She only recognizes me. Even if someone else were to take the soul artifact, it would be useless. Of course, Yu Meng has been sacrificed for many years. I used this crystal coffin to preserve her appearance. If I didn't use a soul cultivator's secret technique to refine her, she still wouldn't be able to leave this place." That's right." Lan Xian understood. She sighed and said, "A perfectly good person is now nothing more than a puppet. Even I, an old man, am unable to calm my heart." "That's right. Before today, I also had the same thoughts." Tu Hong's eyes flashed with sorrow. "I only wanted to stay by Yu Meng's side and watch her unchanging appearance slowly grow old. When the day comes that I reach the end of my life, I will accompany her to the 9 nether realms. But, today, I saw a living Yu Meng." Lan Xian forced a smile. That's right." Tu Hong's eyes flashed with a thoughtful expression. "When I saw that female cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect, I was simply stupid. Wasn't this a gift from the heavens? A few days ago, the soul cultivators had just left, and now this female cultivator has delivered herself to my doorstep. Wasn't it because the heavens saw my painstaking efforts and came to help me?" Chapter 23-27. A million soul cultivators from Meng Mountain? Lan Xian also thoughtfully asked. At this time, Yu Meng walked in with a jug of wine in her hands. She easily placed the jug in front of Tu Hong. "Oh? Where's the wine bowl?" Tu Hong took the jug and glanced at Yu Meng's empty right hand. "I'll go get it." Yu Meng's expression didn't change. She lightly said as she turned around. "No need. Go back and rest." Tu Hong's face flashed with gloom as he whispered. "Yes, husband." Yu Meng complied and entered the crystal coffin again. She lay down on her back and closed her eyes. Dang dang, Tu Hong shook the bell again, and Yu Meng immediately quieted down and remained motionless. "Let's go." Tu Hong closed the lid of the crystal coffin and turned to leave the tent. Lan Xian didn't dare to be negligent. She quickly followed him out. Outside the tent, it was abnormally cold. Tu Hong looked up, squinting his eyes as he looked at the pitch-black ceiling. After a long time, he tilted his head back, took a sip of the strong wine, and handed the jug to Lan Xian. Lan Xian didn't dare to refuse. She also took a small sip, but she didn't hand the jug over to Tu Hong. Tu Hong pointed a finger above his head and said, "The soul cultivators have already said that if I hadn't spent a great deal of money to bid for this magic tool fragment called the icy mirror, then I would have created an icy cold space here. If I hadn't placed Yu Meng in the crystal coffin after she died, then even if they had secret soul cultivation techniques, they still wouldn't have been able to awaken her. Moreover, if they didn't have Yu Meng's soul, or if they had a soul that was extremely similar to Yu Meng's soul, then she could only move about in the crystal coffin and the icy mirror." A soul that is similar to Yu Meng's soul. General is saying. Lan Xian cried out in surprise. Tu Hong didn't even look at Lan Xian. He lifted his hand and took the jug of wine from Lan Xian's hand. He took a long drink and laughed. "Yes, it is that female cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect. Although I don't know if her soul is similar to Yu Meng's, since they have the same appearance, it is extremely likely that their souls are similar. How could I possibly give up such an excellent opportunity?" This old man understands. Lan Xian nodded. "When I assign tasks, I already switched the Imperial Thunder sect's positions and transferred them to the most core area. General, find an opportunity to capture Imperial Thunder sect's Dui Qimeng." Sigh, what a pity. If it were that simple, why would I hesitate? Tu Hong smiled bitterly. Lan Xian thought for a moment and smiled. "Are there any other taboos?" "Yes, there are a few taboos." Tu Hong nodded. "First of all, the soul cultivator told me that the soul must be in perfect condition and must not be damaged in any way. Secondly, the owner of the soul must be willing, otherwise the soul won't be pure. If it carries the owner's imprint, it will break Yu Meng's imprint. If Yu Meng can no longer be resurrected, even if she changes her body, she will still be Dui Qimeng. Io, this is troublesome." Lan Xian shook her head. "This Dui Qimeng seems to be a couple with their captain, Cui Hongshan. He's just an early-stage foundation establishment brat. He's nothing." Tu Hong sneered. "This too knows that this time I have completed the city lord's plan. How could he not grant this small wish of mine? Won't the Yanxi prefecture grant the wish of a Jindan stage cultivator from the Sentry City? Do you want this old man to?" Lan Xian whispered. "No need." Tu Hong arched an eyebrow and proudly said, "It would be easy for this two to kill that bastard, but this two disdains it. Besides, if Cui Hongshan dies in Golden Spring Mountain, others won't say anything. But when this two asks the city lord for Dui Qimeng in the future, wouldn't those people be able to use it against me? If those self-righteous fools from the Yanxi prefecture investigate this matter, then it will become an obstacle." This old man understands. Lan Xian nodded, but then asked, "Then Golden Spring Mountain, won't protect Cui Hongshan? Won't I let him die here? This too won't do it, old brother Lan won't do it, and even my Golden Spring Mountain disciples won't do it." Tu Hong drank another mouthful of wine and smiled, "But who can guarantee that a sword cultivator won't do it? This too can't protect a Imperial Thunder sect disciple just because he has scruples. Wouldn't that be even more of a weakness?" This old man understands. Lan Xian nodded. This old man knows what to do. In this war, 5 out of 10 will remain. If the Imperial Thunder sect disciples are lucky, then they will survive. If they aren't, then let them die. Tu Hong picked up the wine jug and slowly walked back into the tent. In Lan Xian's eyes, his back was increasingly lonely. Lan Xian sighed. She knew that it wasn't appropriate for her to stay here any longer. She bowed and said, "General, this old man will retire." Go. Tu Hong waved his hand. "Arrange everything well. Perhaps that sword cultivator will come in a few days." "Yes." Lan Xian turned and walked towards the stone wall. A powerful vortex sucked her in, and she disappeared from sight. What? There are actually so many top-grade spirit stone crystal pillars in the reception hall? Xiao Hua had been called out from Cui Hongshan's seclusion room and was very unhappy in his heart. But when he heard that Golden Spring Mountain's top-grade spirit stones were used in such a manner, his eyes began to shine. He smacked his lips and said, Isn't this too much of a waste of heaven's gifts? Looking at Xiao Hua's appearance, Cui Hongshan gave birth to a trace of contempt. Damn it, it's a good thing that I didn't let this bastard go, otherwise. I'm afraid he would have thrown himself onto those spirit stone crystal pillars and used his teeth to bite off a piece of the top-grade spirit stone. A wandering cultivator, no matter how high their cultivation is, they are still different from my cultivation family's upbringing. No matter how high Xiao Hua's cultivation is, compared to Senior Tu Hong, the difference is like clouds and mud. Junior apprentice brother Xiao, Golden Spring Mountain's crystal pillars are array formations, they are used for defense. Zhen Minghui chuckled as he explained. He naturally understood Xiao Hua's shock. Wasn't he also dumbfounded at that time? Also, what that disciple of Golden Spring Mountain said was correct. Golden Spring Mountain may lack anything, but they will never lack spirit stones. That's great, that's great. We came to the right place. Xiao Hua rubbed his fingers together, as if he were already holding some top-grade spirit stones in his hands. Immediately after, Cui Hongshan said a few more things, but Xiao Hua didn't listen in his heart. His mind was filled with the shiny spirit stones. Xiao Hua, Cui Hongshan shouted. What? What's the matter? Xiao Hua obviously didn't hear what Cui Hongshan said, he was slightly stunned. Cui Hongshan was happy in his heart, he didn't care about Xiao Hua's expression and said, Golden Spring Mountain Senior Tu Hong gave my Imperial Thunder Sect a great merit the moment we met. This Cui knows that this is all thanks to you. Now, this Cui wants to discuss with you, should this Cui directly record your merit in the captain token? Or should this merit be recorded on my first squad's disciples? Cui Hongshan mentioning this matter in front of everyone was quite thought-provoking. It could be said that he was frank and sincere, but it could also be said that he had ulterior motives. However, Xiao Hua was too lazy to think about what he was thinking, he waved his hand and said with a smile, naturally it's everyone's merit. If it wasn't for everyone trying their best to kill the beast cultivators, I'm afraid you would have already been killed by them. Junior Martial Brother Xiao. Dui Chiman glanced at Cui Hongshan with some dissatisfaction and advised, actually, against the sword cultivators, we did put in some effort, but against the beast cultivators and giants, it was all thanks to Junior Martial Brother Xiao. It's all thanks to Junior Martial Brother's strength. If we lose the credit, we won't feel at ease. Merit or storage pouch, which is more important? Xiao Hua pursed his lips and extended his hand. Senior Martial Sister Dui, feel free to ask for the merit. Just give the items to Junior Martial Brother. Junior Martial Brother doesn't know. Dui Chiman was anxious. After the Sword Dao battle, we will return to the Imperial Thunder Sect and be rewarded according to our merit. Isn't this merit good stuff? Xiao Hua nodded. When the time comes, just give the good stuff to Xiao Hua. All right. Dui Chimeng sized up Xiao Hua with her beautiful eyes. She really didn't understand why Xiao Hua didn't like to be famous. If she had Xiao Hua's cultivation, she would have already made a name for herself in the Sword Dao tournament. By the time she returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect's Dui Lei Palace, wouldn't she be able to get whatever cultivation method and spirit pills she wanted? Maybe everyone has their own ambitions. Dui Chimeng could only think like this. After that, Cui Hongshan took out Quan Jinshan's jade slip and told them the area that the Imperial Thunder Sect's first squad had to guard, as well as the location of the supporting array. He then made 10 copies of the jade slip and gave each of them a copy. The Imperial Thunder Sect was responsible for a very large area. If 10 people patrolled together, they wouldn't be able to take care of the entire area. Cui Hongshan complained about Quan Jinshan's irresponsible arrangement and divided the 10 people into 5 groups. Two people in a group and divided the area they would be patrolling. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but Ming Mao and Xiao Hua were in the same group. Xiao Hua didn't care, but Dui Ling, who was in the same group as Zhen Minghui, was already pouting. "Let's go." Cui Hongshan acted as if he didn't see it and waved his hand. "Today is our first shift. Let's first familiarize ourselves with the environment and set an example for the others. After all, if we were rewarded the moment we arrived, the others will definitely be jealous." "Yes, we understand." Zhen Minghui and the others nodded with a smile, but Xiao Hua didn't care and secretly said, "He really is a fan of politics." This is also the quality of a cultivator aristocratic family. Everyone flew out of the quiet room, and Ming Mao and Xiao Hua each showed their tokens and entered the cave that the Qi refinement disciples had dug out from. After flying for a while, they passed through several crisscrossing tunnels and gradually entered the depths of the jade mine. The 10 people of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first small team were divided into 5 groups and flew towards different tunnels. Junior brother Xiao. After flying for a while, seeing that Xiao Hua didn't say anything and didn't make any arrangements, Ming Mao couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "How should we patrol? Should we follow the route or go against it? Or... It's so troublesome." Xiao Hua was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect that there would be so many ways to patrol. He thought that he only needed to fly once. I'll teach junior brother Xiao that when doing something, there should be a plan. What to do first, and what to do afterwards, all of these must be thought out in advance. Ming Mao said with a smile, "Otherwise, it'll be a mess." Junior brother Xiao wants to become the pillar of my Imperial Thunder sect in the future, so you'll definitely be in charge of a branch. It's better to nurture these abilities as early as possible. Chapter 23-28. Don't. Xiao Hua felt a headache as soon as he heard this. He was used to doing as he pleased. What planning? What controlling? How could it compare to freedom? Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "This little brother's brain is lazy. Let senior apprentice sister Bright Eyes arrange everything. This little brother will just accompany you from behind." Bright Eyes chuckled and said, "Senior apprentice brother Zhao's magic power is profound. These are all small details that you don't need to think about. In short, once senior apprentice brother has a status, there will definitely be people who will give you advice." Captain Cui mentioned that Lan Xian. She must be one of senior Tu Hong's strategists. What are strategists? Xiao Hua didn't understand. For Golden Core stage cultivators like senior Tu Hong, or even nascent soul stage cultivators, they only care about their cultivation base, and are too lazy to divert their attention to the affairs of Golden Spring Mountain. Therefore, there are some cultivators who are good at handling these affairs who come out to help and give advice to senior Tu Hong. These are the so-called strategists. Bright Eyes patiently explained. "Oh, so that's how it is." Xiao Hua nodded. He understood that there were some cultivators who didn't have much of a future in terms of cultivation, so they attached themselves to high-level cultivators in order to find a way to improve themselves. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua inexplicably thought of the Immortal Beauty School. Senior apprentice brother Xiao is really smart. Just a hint and you understand. Bright Eyes smiled and flattered. Senior apprentice sister Bright Eyes, please don't praise me. This little brother will be your strategists. You should lead the way. Xiao Hua smiled and stretched out his hand. Strategists? Bright Eyes was surprised at first. Then, she covered her mouth and laughed. I didn't think that senior apprentice brother Xiao would be so humorous. I really didn't realize it before. As she spoke, Bright Eyes didn't hold back. She picked a tunnel entrance and flew in. Sweat, this Xiao wants to lead the way, but it's a pity that this Xiao always gets lost. It's better if I don't. Xiao Hua looked at Bright Eyes' figure as she flew away. He smiled and thought to himself, besides, walking at the back, isn't that bad? There was a saying in the secular world that said, men and women work together. These words were also applicable to the cultivators of the cultivation world. At least, that was what Ming Mao thought. She flew with Xiao Hua for half a day, and it was extremely relaxing. Occasionally, she would even joke with Xiao Hua, and the two of them chatted very harmoniously. However, the only thing that made Ming Mao unhappy was that all the topics were started by her. When she didn't speak, Xiao Hua would just follow behind her without saying a word. I still have to work hard. Ming Mao inwardly encouraged herself. Xiao Hua didn't know what Ming Mao was thinking. His mind wasn't on flirting at all. His mind was already on the spirit stone mine. The stone walls in this spirit stone mine were rather strange. They restricted spiritual sense and Buddhist sense, and they couldn't go very far. It seemed to be a natural restriction. Although Xiao Hua tried his best to release his Buddhist sense, he could only see about 100 feet away. Therefore, although he and Ming Mao flew through a few tunnels and saw a few caves, they didn't discover anything. This caused Xiao Hua to be displeased. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said in a low voice, "Senior Sister Bright Eyes, didn't you notice anything strange?" "Oh." Hearing Xiao Hua's sudden question, Ming Mao was secretly happy. She hurriedly asked, "Junior brother Xiao, did you notice anything?" "Senior Sister Bright Eyes, don't you feel strange?" Xiao Hua's eyes darted around as he looked at the spacious tunnel and said, "This is the interior of the Golden Spring Mountain Spirit Stone Vein, it must be bustling with noise and excitement. Not to mention the disciples mining the spirit stones, there must be many disciples patrolling the area. Why haven't we seen any disciples of Jinquan Mountain after flying for so long?" This. Ming Mao didn't think so much. Her thoughts were the same as Xiao Hua's, and they weren't on patrol. "I guess this isn't the center of the spirit stone mine." Ming Mao thought for a moment and said with a smile, "We are only here to help. Jinquan Mountain won't let us see the center of the spirit stone mine. It's good enough that they let us patrol without worry. They still want us to contribute to the defensive array, right?" Senior Sister Bright Eyes is right. Xiao Hua nodded, "But I'm still worried. How about this, Senior Sister will patrol according to the plan that we discussed earlier. I'll go take a look, see if there's anything wrong." Saying that, Xiao Hua's figure flashed and quickly rushed towards a cave on the left. His figure quickly disappeared into the cave. "Junior brother Xiao." Ming Mao was shocked. She stretched out her hand and shouted, "This is an important place of Jinquan Mountain. How can we?" But how could Xiao Hua hear her words? He had already flown away. Why is this fellow so reckless? No wonder Captain Shui was dissatisfied with him. Ming Mao muttered. She looked at the place where Xiao Hua disappeared with some reluctance. Then, she felt an ominous feeling in her heart. Could it be that he didn't want to stay with me? That's why he found an excuse to escape. My appearance isn't any worse than Shue's. It's just that my master isn't as powerful as her master. My Dui Lei Palace is just slightly worse than Sun Lei Palace. No. I can't miss this good opportunity. Senior Sister Dui said it right. Opportunities are meant to be grasped by people. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an opportunity. In any case, Shui and he haven't undergone the dual cultivation ceremony yet. I still have a chance. Even if they dual cultivate, what can they do? For a cultivator with an outstanding cultivation like Xiao Hua, what's so strange about having a few more dual cultivation partners? If I don't take advantage of the fact that Xiao Hua hasn't revealed his strength, I won't be able to regret it in the future when Xiao Hua is targeted by many female cultivators. Thinking about how domineering Heavenly Thunder Palace is, no matter how shy this fellow is, I will still capture him. Xiao Hua didn't expect that he had already become Ming Mao's target. After he flew into the cave, he first used his divine sense to make a mark on the side. Then, he immediately put on his camouflage robe and used a concealment technique. He followed the cave and flew underground. However, after flying for nearly the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua arrived at an even more remote place. He saw that this place was very messy. The ground was filled with stone fragments of various sizes. Occasionally, there were small pieces of spirit stone fragments on top of the stone fragments. Haha, I'm afraid I'm close to the spirit stone mine. Xiaohua's eyes lit up. He didn't have time to think about why this place wasn't cleaned up. His gaze swept across the place and he flew towards an opening at the end of the cave. There wasn't anyone guarding that opening. When Xiaohua flew into the cave, he couldn't help but be shocked. He saw that this was a square space that was 100 zhang long and several tens of zhang deep. The cave entrance was right above this space. This space was completely empty. There was nothing inside. Xiaohua was very bored. He let out a soft sigh. That woo-woo sound reverberated in the entire space. It was as if Xiaohua was sobbing in his heart. Damn it, Xiaohua's divine sense swept over and he cursed, this is definitely an abandoned mine that has already been mined. Without waiting for this sound to finish reverberating in the space, Xiaohua immediately turned around and went back to search again. However, Xiaohua's luck didn't seem to be good today. It wasn't suitable for him to make a fortune. He searched for a while more. When Ming Mao's patrol was about done, he had no choice but to go back. He found 2 more empty and abandoned mining sites. Are you kidding me? Xiaohua was depressed. When had great Taoist Xiao, who was known as "thieves don't leave empty-handed," ever been humiliated like this? No, Xiaohua thought, today is my first patrol. Quan Jinshan might not care. Furthermore, there might be disciples from other sects who have the same plan as this young master. Their cultivation is not good enough. They might be discovered by Tu Hong. This way, there might not be any opportunities in the future. Today, this young master must get to the bottom of this. That's right. In the entire Quan Jinshan, the one with the highest cultivation was Tu Hong, an early-stage golden core cultivator. This kind of cultivator, in Xiaohua's eyes, had no pressure at all. Wasn't the entire Quan Jinshan waiting for Xiaohua to bring disaster to it? Thinking, Xiaohua formed a hand seal and entered the ground. He opened his left hand and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. He carefully searched for the location of the spirit stone mine. It was a pity. Although the Dharma eye was powerful, Xiaohua couldn't see far. It was no different from his divine sense. Just as Xiaohua was about to close his transcendence eye, a dozen or so huge earthen yellow pillars suddenly appeared several feet in front of him. Good. Xiaohua's eyes widened in an instant. His magic power surged as he dashed forward. Io, there are people here. Just as Xiaohua's figure appeared in a huge space, he was stunned. He saw that this space was actually densely packed with cultivators. And these cultivators were all sitting cross-legged in groups of 3 to 5, surrounding these huge pillars. There was even a faintly discernible gaze that unconsciously swept past the place he appeared. This is bad. Xiaohua hurriedly dodged and used the trace concealment technique again. There's someone. Sure enough, the gaze that saw Xiaohua unconsciously swept past Xiaohua's body and was immediately stunned. He shouted and his gaze returned to the place where Xiaohua disappeared. At the same time, he jumped up. Who? Hearing the strange movement of that cultivator, the nearby cultivators all opened their eyes and looked towards the sky. Beside the cultivator, a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator also jumped up and swept his divine sense over there. However, Xiaohua disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had never appeared. The cultivator's divine sense swept for a moment but did not find any trace of him. Su Hu, what did you see? That cultivator frowned and glared at the cultivator who jumped up first and asked. This subordinate seems to have seen a figure appear. Su Hu gritted his teeth. He himself was also not sure. You saw it? That cultivator looked up and down, half believing and half doubting. What did he look like? What was he wearing? This. Su Hu smiled bitterly. He originally saw it unconsciously and Xiaohua disappeared in an instant. How could he remember clearly? After thinking for a moment, he shook his head and said, this subordinate could not see clearly. Humph, that cultivator said coldly, that means you are not sure? Also, you did not carefully comprehend the details of the array. Instead, you were casually looking around? Captain. Su Hu hurriedly said, it's not that this subordinate did not want to comprehend it. It's just that the details of this array are too profound. This subordinate was worried that I would delay the great general's plan. This subordinate opened his eyes and wanted to relax. However, this subordinate really did not dare to lie. I heard that in these few days, the disciples of the various sects of the Tao sect have come to my Golden Spring Mountain. If someone were to find this place. Chapter 23-29. Shut up. The team leader berates, you only need to comprehend your own technique, where are the other matters for you to worry about? Yes, this subordinate understands. Su Hu is still unwilling to give up. He looks over and uses his spirit sense to scan the area. There really isn't a single trace of magic power, nor is there any trace of him. You go sit down and continue comprehending. The team leader looks around and berates, all of you hurry up and work hard. The general said that after the Tao sect cultivators come, we won't be able to stay peaceful for long. We must familiarize ourselves with the array before the sword cultivators come. This matter is crucial. Whoever dares to delay the general's plan, even if I don't say it, all of you should know the consequences, right? Yes, this subordinate understands. When everyone hears, they don't dare to look anymore. Even the disciple who opened his eyes earlier hurriedly sits down and closes his eyes to comprehend. The team leader waves his hand and directs a dozen disciples who are also in the middle stage of foundation establishment to fly into the air and surround Xiaohua's hiding spot. Unfortunately, Xiaohua has already flown away, how can they find him? Following which, the dozen disciples searched the entire space once again but still couldn't find any trace of him. They can't help but hesitate. A cultivator says worriedly, team leader, this matter is a little difficult. If we report this to the general, he will definitely be furious. We actually allowed the Tao sect cultivators to find this place. But if we don't report this and there really is such a person here, I'm afraid it will cause trouble. And, actually, from what this old man sees, there isn't anyone here. The team leader thinks for a moment and smiles, the ordinary invisibility talisman can't use magic power. If someone is flying in the air, he will definitely reveal himself. Furthermore, this place is within the mine, even the 5 elements escape technique can't penetrate deep. Team leader means? We don't need to report? Of course we need to report. The team leader smiles, if we don't report, how will the general know of our hard work? How will he know that our vigilance is high? Yes, this subordinate understands. The disciple suddenly realizes, this subordinate will go over now. You stay here and comprehend, this old man will personally go over. Yes. The disciple's eyes reveal a trace of disappointment. He follows the other dozen people to their seats and sits down while the team leader flies out. After Xiaohua concealed his tracks, he directly walked over the heads of these Jin Quan Mountain disciples. These middle-stage foundation establishment disciples didn't notice at all. I'm overjoyed. Xiaohua was still remorseful as he flew, needless to say, this must be the top-grade spirit stone crystal pillar that Zhen Minghui was talking about. That Golden Spring Mountain disciple was right, other than the array formation in the guest hall, there should be 9 more in the other places. This is one of them. I was wondering where all the patrolling disciples of Golden Spring Mountain had gone to. So they were all hiding within the array. Tu Hong's plan is really well thought out. He wants the disciples of Jin Shan Quan to control the main part of the array and the Dao sect disciples to control the unimportant parts. He wants my Dao sect disciples to work for him. That's why I'm looking for spirit stone veins. I can't waste my magic power for nothing. Xiaohua knew that the disciples in the formation would definitely search for it, and they would definitely report it to Tu Hong. Therefore, he didn't dare to be negligent and continued to search along the tunnel. When he found an abandoned mine next to the array formation, Xiaohua scratched his head. Fuck, are you kidding me? Don't tell me that all the spirit stone veins in Jin Shan Quan Mountain have already been emptied by Sky Patrol City? Why didn't they leave anything for me? Following which, Xiaohua turned around hatefully and was about to escape back. But just as he turned around, Xiaohua still wasn't satisfied. With a wave of his hand, he took out the spirit-seeking mouse and scolded, "Little Silver, your mother isn't here. I'm your mother's mother, why can't you understand what I'm saying? Quickly go and find the spirit stone veins, otherwise I won't let you eat any more spirit herbs." Then, Xiaohua glared fiercely at Little Silver, not caring whether it understood or not. It was strange. At this moment, Little Silver was different from Imperial Thunder Sect's Myriad Thunder Valley's Little Silver. As soon as this guy was released from the space, it immediately raised its nose and sniffed around. After a while, its eyes immediately lit up, and just like the crystal pillar of the supreme-grade spirit stone that Xiaohua had seen earlier, it burrowed into the ground beside Xiaohua. Ha! Xiaohua was overjoyed. Without saying a word, he made a hand seal and followed it. The spirit-seeking mouse was indeed a spirit-seeking mouse. It was completely different from Xiaohua's blindness, it had a purpose. It directly burrowed into the ground without any hesitation. Xiaohua used Earth Escape to follow it. He clearly felt that the pressure underground was different from before. Not only was there an extremely heavy force pressing down on his head, faintly imprisoning all the vital essence in his body, but there was also a strong force pushing him out. Moreover, this layer of soil was extremely fine and it was very difficult to escape through the ground. He had to consume a lot of vital essence for every foot he traveled. Fortunately, Xiaohua's vital essence was extremely strong, and he didn't show any signs of exhaustion even after diving down several hundred zhang with the spirit-seeking mouse. However, the force pushing him up was even stronger, and Xiaohua gradually found it a little strenuous. Moreover, a lot of time had passed, and Xiaohua was ready to beat a retreat. But just as Xiaohua was about to call out to the spirit-seeking mouse, his eyes instinctively lit up. The spirit-seeking mouse stopped and very happily pounced forward. My goodness, this is... Xiaohua also stopped, his eyes wide as he stared at the crystal that was several hundred zhang tall in front of him. He couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air, and some liquid flowed in his mouth. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and touched the ice-cold crystal. His divine sense swept over it, and he couldn't help groaning again. Damn it, I'm rich. This doesn't seem to be a supreme-grade spirit stone. This should be chalcedony. It's an extremely rare chalcedony found in spirit stone veins. Thinking this, Xiaohua no longer hesitated. He stretched out his hand and took out Qiu Yin Lu. Gathering all the strength in his body, he stabbed at the chalcedony spike. With a muffled clang, the sharp demonic weapon, coupled with his incomparable strength, actually pierced a small part of Xiaohua's Qiu Yin Lu into the spike. I'm a little too excited. Xiaohua used all his strength to pry open the Qiu Yin Lu, but the chalcedony didn't budge at all. Xiaohua couldn't help but smile bitterly. As long as he used all his strength to pull the Qiu Yin Lu out, he would use less strength. Then, Xiaohua would pry left and right, prying out several pieces of chalcedony in succession. After putting the chalcedony into his space, Xiaohua didn't dare to stop. With a wave of his hand, he put Little Silver, who was pouncing on the chalcedony, into his space. Completely ignoring the hidden bitterness in Little Silver's eyes, he immediately rushed back to the surface. When Xiaohua returned to the tunnel following the divine sense mark, he saw a pair of anxious bright eyes looking around. Chapter 23:30. Oh? What's wrong? Xiaohua turned around the cave and asked with a smile. Xiaohua, where did you go? Seeing Xiaohua appear, Ming Mao was pleasantly surprised. She immediately pounced over, hurriedly and naturally holding Xiaohua's hand as she said anxiously. I didn't go anywhere. I'm just watching from the side. Xiaohua also pulled his hand out without leaving a trace and pointed behind him. Then, why did you take so long? Captain Chui's communication talisman has been here for a long time, urging us to hurry back. Ming Mao reproached, her voice seemed to be bitter. Moreover, your communication talisman can't be sent out, how can this concubine not be anxious? Oh? My communication talisman can't be sent out? Xiaohua was slightly stunned, but fortunately, the communication talisman can't be sent out, otherwise, if he was in the array, wouldn't he be exposed? That's right, where did you go? Ming Mao rebuked. Xiaohua shrugged and smiled, this little brother is indeed nearby. The reason why the communication talisman can't be sent out is because this is a spirit stone mine, right? What does this have to do with a spirit stone mine? Ming Mao asked curiously. Let's hurry up and leave. Xiaohua smiled and flew up. Didn't senior sister say that Chui Hongshan sent a communication talisman? Hee, Chui Hongshan is your senior brother, why are you still calling him that? Ming Mao asked with a smile. Xiaohua's brows twitched, but he didn't reply. Ming Mao blinked her eyes, knowing that Xiaohua wasn't willing to talk about it, so she didn't ask any more. The two of them flew back from their patrol area. Just as they flew back to their resting area, they saw that in front of the quiet room, there were disciples from various sects standing there with displeasure on their faces. What took you so long? Chui Hongshan reproached again. Ming Mao hurriedly said, Captain Chui, this concubine received your communication talisman and hurried back, but because it was the first time I was on patrol, I flew slowly and just happened to be at the farthest place. Fortunately, Jin Shan Quan's disciples haven't come yet. Chui Hongshan muttered and didn't ask any more. What's going on? Ming Mao asked curiously. Junior brother Xiao and I were just patrolling the area. According to the disciple of Golden Spring Mountain, he vaguely mentioned that there seems to be a problem with one of the patrolling guards in Lian country. Chui Hongshan frowned slightly. Xiaohua rolled his eyes. The place he went to was really far away from the place where the Imperial Thunder sect was patrolling. As for where he went, he really didn't know. He didn't even know which sect helped him take the blame. However, with him, the main culprit, here, that sect would not suffer any losses. Sure enough, after another cup of tea's worth of time, Lan Xian personally arrived. As she looked at the many disciples gathered in front of the quiet room, Lan Xian smiled and cupped her hands across her chest. Fellow Taoists, I've disturbed you all. That was a false alarm. I'm really sorry. What's going on, fellow Taoist Lan? One of the captains asked in a displeased manner. It's nothing. Lan Qin didn't hide anything and said, I found traces of an enemy in one of the array cores of my Golden Spring Mountain array. But, my Golden Spring Mountain disciples didn't find any sword cultivators that entered, so this old man thought that it might have been a fellow Taoist that came as reinforcements that mistakenly entered the array core. Of course, the fellow Taoists from Lian country's variant beast sect were also patrolling at that time. The disciples of the other nearby sects also didn't go to the array core. So this old man thought that my Golden Spring Mountain disciples had made a mistake. That disciple was severely punished just now. Oh, so that's how it is. The captain nodded, this matter is truly important. It's normal for fellow Taoist Lan to be cautious. If fellow Taoists can understand this old man's difficulties, then that is for the best. Lan Xian cupped her hands across her chest and said, fellow Taoists, when patrolling, it is best that you follow the predetermined area and do not overstep it. Also, because my Golden Spring Mountain collects spirit stones, there are many underground caves that are similar to a maze. If some fellow Taoists are curious and go in the wrong direction, they really might not be able to return. Remember this, remember this. Then, Lan Xian bid everyone farewell and left. Shui Hongshan looked at Xiao Hua and the others, but didn't say anything. In his heart, he faintly felt that there was something strange about Xiao Hua and Ming Mao coming back so late, but he also didn't ask anything. In the next few days, although Xiao Hua restrained himself a bit, he still found time to directly take Little Silver underground and crazily mine for jade marrow. It was just that this jade marrow was really hard. At first, it was fine, but later, Xiao Hua directly took out the wishful iron rod and used it to cut off a small piece. Just as Xiao Hua was overjoyed, in the vicinity of the spirit stone mine at Golden Spring Mountain, a dozen sword cultivators came. The sword cultivator in front of them was none other than Ling Yunwu of the High Wind Sword Sect. Ling Yunwu's eyebrows were tightly furrowed. The flying sword under his feet slowly flew as he swept out with his divine sense, slowly searching. Poor Ling Yunwu. The first time he came to White Jade Mountain, he couldn't find any clues at all. When he came the second time, he relied on a secret technique to find some clues, and found the place where the dozens of bright swordsmen he trusted had been killed. Even if he found it, what was the use? Ling Yunwu still didn't have the slightest clue. This place is very far away from Sky Patrol City. Furthermore, it's barren. Which Golden Core cultivator would come here? Or hundreds of Foundation establishment cultivators? To completely surround my swordsmen? The cultivators of Sky Patrol City were forced by LV Ruochang's plan to guard the Spirit Stone Mine. Then there must be hundreds of Foundation establishment cultivators coming to reinforce White Jade Mountain. If they were just passing by, it's impossible for there to be hundreds of them, only a few or a dozen. Only in the vicinity of White Jade Mountain can they gather together. But, where is this Spirit Stone Mine? It's not like I haven't been here before, but I've never found any signs of a Spirit Stone Mine. Ling Yunwu was really going crazy. He also had a mission to attack the Spirit Stone Mine, but it wasn't near White Jade Mountain. Furthermore, compared with attacking the Spirit Stone Mine, his mission was more important. That was dark silk wood, which LV Ruochang had obtained by chance in Million Mountain Meng. Now that he needed it, where was he going to find another piece? Moreover, there was also the sword pouch, which was also a very precious thing. He had lost it just like that. He felt ashamed just thinking about it. He was really too careless. After flying for half a day, Ling Yunwu arrived at the mountain range of Spring Gold Mountain. Ling Yunwu sighed and landed on the mountain range. The disciples scattered around him also flew over. Everyone's face was full of embarrassment. Obviously, they didn't find anything. Senior Brother Ling. A disciple who was also an illusory sword cultivator said softly, "Those Foundation establishment cultivators. I'm afraid they've already returned to Sky Patrol City. The possibility of success is extremely small if we search inch by inch." Sigh, that's strange. Ling Yunwu sat on a huge rock in the mountain range and smiled bitterly. LV Ruochang sent a flying sword message saying that she couldn't find the sword pouch's trace even with her secret technique. That sword pouch was either imprisoned by a powerful magic power, or it was too far away from the sword region. Maybe I've guessed wrong? Is there really a late-stage golden core or nascent soul cultivator? A nascent soul cultivator wouldn't attack a drawing sword disciple, right? At most, it would be a golden core cultivator. The disciple said softly. Sigh, maybe. Ling Yunwu didn't comment. The most important thing now is to find the black silk wood. Otherwise, the beast cultivator senior's life will be lost. I won't have the face to see anyone. I've been here before, but I haven't seen any spirit stone veins. The disciple looked at the endless pine trees and shook his head. We can't find it, but it doesn't mean it's not here. Maybe it's under the forest. Ling Yunwu snorted and waved his hand. The flying sword flew out like a raging fire. Boom boom boom, it destroyed all the trees in a radius of hundreds of feet under the mountain range. For a moment, flames soared into the sky. Looking at the crackling flames burning and slowly extinguishing, the charred trees fell to the snow-covered ground. A bitter smile appeared on the disciple's face. He bowed and said, "Why don't I bring the disciples to the forest to have a look?" Go. Ling Yunwu nodded, "Find more places." Yes. The disciple accepted the order and left. Following which, boom boom boom, sounds came from the forest. Trees began to fall to the ground. Sigh, it feels like searching for a needle in a haystack. Although the Ling Feng sword sect's disciples moved quickly, the area they searched was still pathetically small compared to the entire forest. Who knew how long it would take for them to search through the entire forest? Sigh. Ling Yunwu sighed softly again. He felt a faint sense of regret. He knew that everything had already happened and regret wouldn't solve anything. However, he couldn't help but think, if. Of course, this wouldn't have happened, right? After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Ling Yunwu seemed to have rested enough. He flew up and stepped on his flying sword. He charged into the sky and flew towards the other side of the Golden Spring Mountain. However, just as he flew for 100 feet, another sword light came from the northeast. This sword light was as blue as water and incomparably clear. Oh! When Ling Yunwu saw this sword light, a smile appeared on his face. He covered up all the dejection he felt earlier. With a push, the fiery red sword light under his feet flew forward to meet the incoming sword light. When the sword light flew closer, a beautiful middle-aged woman could be seen on the flying sword. She was dressed in the standard sword cultivator attire. She had big eyes, a towering chest and snow-white skin that was very eye-catching. "Husband!" The female swordsman shouted when she saw Ling Yunwu. "Oh? Wan, why aren't you on duty in Sword's Gate? What are you doing here?" Ling Yunwu smiled and stretched out his hand as if he was going to catch the female swordsman. This female swordsman was Ling Yunwu's wife, Yuan. Yuan's face was full of smiles. Before she flew to Ling Yunwu's side, she couldn't wait to take out a sword scroll and shouted, "Husband, I have good news to tell you." Chapter 23:31. Oh? What good news? Ling Yunwu raised his other hand and took the sword scroll that Yuan handed over. However, that hand held Yuan's soft hand. Husband will know once you take a look. Yuan was actually a little out of breath, and her face was even a little red. It was really a symptom of forcefully activating the sword origin and flying on the sword. Ling Yunwu's heart ached, but he was not in a hurry to check the sword scroll. He said with pity, "If there's any news, can't you just send a flying sword message? Why do you have to come here yourself? Not to mention the sword origin, this journey will not be safe. If we meet a cultivator from the Dao sect, your husband." Husband. Just take a look first. Yuan did not wait for him to finish and laughed. "How can a flying sword message be safer and more convenient than me coming here myself? Besides, I'm also worried about you. If I don't come and see for myself, how can I be at ease?" Hearing Yuan's words, Ling Yunwu felt sweet in his heart. He released his spirit sense to check the sword scroll. "This is an image." Yuan smiled as she reminded him, but her eyes revealed a trace of mischief. Wan how old are you? You're still so naughty. Ling Yunwu smiled bitterly, and the gloominess in his heart faded a lot. When he activated the sword origin, he saw a blurry image appear from the sword scroll. It was a thin and tall Dao sect cultivator wearing the attire of the Imperial Thunder sect. He quickly flew over, and before he could see the cultivator's appearance clearly, the image turned black again. "This is," a trace of surprise flashed across Ling Yunwu's eyes, and then he looked at Yuan in surprise. "This is the image left behind by Old Seven and the others?" "Yes, not all of them," Yuan said with a smile. "They were killed in a hurry, so how could they have the time to leave behind an image? This image was obtained by me, using a secret technique." Wan Air. Ling Yunwu's heart ached. He reached out and pulled Yuan into his embrace. He said in a low voice, "It's all my fault. My negligence not only affected my sword cultivation plan, but also caused your cultivation to be greatly damaged." "Hee, it's nothing." Yuan forced a smile like a blue flower and comforted Ling Yunwu. "To be able to do something for my husband, I'm willing to pay any price. Wan is really my good wife." Ling Yunwu increased the strength in his hands, as if he wanted to embed Yuan into his body. Yuan gritted her teeth as if she was in pain, but she didn't say anything. The two of them hugged each other for a moment before Yuan said in a low voice, "Husband, we're already an old married couple. Don't be so intimate. If the disciples see this, I'm afraid it won't be good. You are my wife, who dares to say anything?" Ling Yunwu snorted, but, looking at the sword cultivator disciples who were patrolling the forest at the top of Jinquan Mountain, he still loosened his grip and pulled her hand to fly towards those disciples. "Husband, this image, this concubine has also seen it." Yuan looked at Ling Yunwu and said worriedly, "This golden core cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect is very powerful. What he used should be the Thunder Control sect's lightning evasion technique. According to the legends, this was the fastest flying technique in the Daybreak continent. My advantage as a sword cultivator was completely gone in front of him. Moreover, you also saw that when he dealt with Old Seven, he didn't use any spells at all and just used close combat." "That's right, this husband also saw it." Ling Yunwu sighed. "This Imperial Thunder sect's cultivator's magic power is so much higher than Old Seven's that he's not afraid of his flying sword at all, or his close combat is even more powerful than us sword cultivators." It should be the former." Yuan pursed her lips and nodded. Along the way, this concubine has also been thinking. There are not many people who are stronger than us sword cultivators in close combat. Since this Imperial Thunder sect's cultivator has mastered the lightning evasion technique, he must be a golden core cultivator. The only explanation is that his magic power is profound. Following which, she looked at Ling Yunwu worriedly and said in a low voice, "It's not that this concubine is looking up to him, but the Imperial Thunder sect's flying technique is the nemesis of us sword cultivators." Suddenly, this golden core cultivator got close to us. "Husband, you have to be careful." My wife is thinking too much." Ling Yunwu said proudly, "Even if it's a golden core cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect, how can this husband be afraid of him? Although he can fly faster than this husband, once he gets close to us, how can he be a match for this husband? You have to know the difference between a bright sword swordsman and an illusory sword swordsman." Hearing Ling Yunwu's words, as expected, Yuan sighed in her heart. However, she smiled and said, "This concubine naturally knows. This concubine's husband is a strange man in the sword domain. How can a small golden core cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect be compared to him? You have a sweet mouth." Ling Yunwu's heart skipped a beat. He stretched out his finger and gently stroked Yuan's face. He smiled and said, "This husband understands your thoughts. This husband will definitely be careful when he sees this guy." Yuan sweetly rubbed her face against Ling Yunwu's hand. She was very attached to it. However, at this moment, the two of them had already flown close to the forest of Mount Quanjin. "All of you, stop. Ling Yunwu looked at the destroyed trees under his feet and shouted, "Our expectations might be wrong." Yes. When the sword cultivator disciples heard this, they hurriedly flew into the air. After greeting Yuan, Ling Yunwu showed them the image in the sword scroll and said, "I reckon that the one who killed our soaring wind sword sect is a golden core cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect. If I'm not wrong, he should be passing by here and heading to Sky Patrol City. He won't stop here. We have to think of another way." Imperial Thunder sect cultivator? Tall and thin figure? A soaring wind sword sect's bright sword sect disciple suddenly lost his voice and said, "Martial Uncle Ling, this can't be the Imperial Thunder sect cultivator called Terrifying Phoenix, right? Terrifying Phoenix?" Yuan frowned and whispered, "What kind of cultivator is that? Could it be related to this golden core cultivator?" No, Ling Yunwu stared at that disciple and hurriedly laughed. "That's just a Foundation establishment disciple with the Phoenix bloodline. He's not the same person as this golden core cultivator. This concubine knows." Yuan smiled and said, "This concubine just doesn't know what's going on with this terrifying Phoenix. Hehe, this person has nothing to do with us. My wife, you don't have to care about who he is." Ling Yunwu said with a smile, "My wife has already sent the sword slip over. It's better to go back as soon as possible. Dao sect cultivators can appear at any time. It's quite dangerous." Then he turned and ordered, "Yunfei, send your senior sister back." "Yes, senior brother Ling." The swordsman, who was also an illusory sword cultivator, cupped his hands and answered, "Husband, you have to be careful." Yuan was very obedient. She didn't ask who the Phoenix man was anymore and said, "Why don't you ask fifth senior brother and the others to come over and help you?" Ling Yunwu originally wanted to refuse, but after thinking about it, he nodded and said, "That's good too. Yunfei, go back to the sword sect and tell the sword master about this. Or ask the senior brothers in the sect to help, or ask other sword friends who are close to you. In short, find about 10 illusory swordsmen. Only with so many sword friends working together will this golden core cultivator of the Imperial Thunder sect not be able to escape." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.